Hello, and welcome to the Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension, where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. I'm Jay here as always with Cole, and today we're going to be discussing a doozy, happiness. What do you think? It's going to be a pretty interesting discussion tonight, I think.
Well, it's a good thing time does not exist in this dimension, otherwise we'd be pretty late. But yeah, hey guys,
Yeah,
what's up?
well,
It's
better
good to
late than
be
never.
here. Yes, this is Happiness from 1999, which I believe is the second film from director Todd Solondz.
Hmm.
Is that how you say it? Solondz?
I'm not sure how to say it, but
Yeah, something like that.
works for me.
Or maybe it might not be a second film, but yeah, actually he
It's
did do a film in '89 called Fear, Anxiety, and Depression that I don't know anything about. But anyway, I was just saying second because it's the follow up to
uh,
Welcome to the Dollhouse from I think '95, which I've also seen.
mhm. Yeah,
And I
he's
think
he's got a bunch of great films. They're all pretty depressing, but
yeah, yeah, I know that's a very ironic title, obviously, as this goes, because yeah, they're all fairly depressing, and but there's still, I mean, a lot of they still have like comedic elements. I guess you'd say it's a black
yeah.
comedy,
Uh,
as you say, which is not to everyone's taste, but it is to mine. I have a weird history with this movie, and that it's yet another movie that I caught on TV way back in like I guess the late '90s, would have been like '99 or 2000, I guess. Given this movie had a '98 release, so it must have had to have been at least about a year after that, if not a bit more. If I was in my late teens, it was before I went to college though, so I was still at home. And I just remember catching it on TV on like Bravo or Showcase, probably Showcase at the time, and I didn't see it right from the beginning. And again, my memory screwed up because several years later, I did track the movie down and rent it at Video Difference when I was up here, so that I could see the whole thing. But before that, I think either I saw most of it or I saw some of the beginning, and then maybe I was flipping around looking at other stuff and coming back to it. Like I can't say that I caught it on TV and I was 100% invested because I get my memory mixed up of the order of things happened, and because
mhm.
sometimes I think, oh, the first scene I saw was when Philip Seymour Hoffman's character calls Joy,
Mhm.
and then I'm like, no, maybe the first scene I saw is when Bill is talking to his son the first time about coming. It's funny because both scenes involve coming. All I can say is like from either one, like neither you would say. I think it's not exactly what would be titillating or exciting to me, but it at least let me know right off the bat this is different than most movies, which is
Yeah.
probably why I continued to watch it. So yeah, I know I
It,
didn't see the prologue or whatever on TV. I call it
yeah.
prologue because technically it happens before the title comes up.
Mhm.
The restaurant scene with Joy and Andy, as played by John Lovitz.
Yeah. Yeah. It's man, it's worse. It's like I knew what the film was about. I've seen it a few times before, and watching it last night, I was like, man, this is going to be hard to talk about just
I
because
don't
it's
know.
so taboo, you know. But
I mean, that's what Solons likes to do. He likes uncomfortable
yeah,
stuff, stuff
yeah,
that's awkward, stuff that's
right,
uncomfortable. This movie has a few scenes that are like, even the ones that aren't necessarily like tinged with any sort of depravity are still kind of uncomfortable. Like, I don't know, listening to a father talk to his son about that. I get that's a normal thing for a lot of people. It wasn't my experience. I did not talk to my dad or my mother about
it's
sexual things when I was a kid growing up.
yeah,
Like, I mean, I
quite
kind of did.
quite detailed, conversations they have.
What's funny is I can remember sort of being given the talk when I was in the car. He was driving me to school, and like by the time he told me that like when you ejaculate, it comes out your penis, I was like, okay, great, bye, and I took
Yeah,
off. So I guess I was 10 or 11. I was in grade 5. And then the next year in grade 6, I think was the first time we had a sex ed at school. Like I don't know
mhm,
what sex ed is like across the board. For me, it was very normal. It was not the type of thing that would get parents, or at least most parents, like upset. It was all very standard, by the numbers, super boring. Like they did their best to make it as boring and dry as possible, so we wouldn't get excited about sex. I guess, right?
right.
But I mean, even to this day, because that would have been like 25 more than 25 years ago for me. I think like to this day it seems like it's still a hot button issue in places. It's just like how much should they be teaching sex ed in school. What age should they start? How much should they have? And there's some parents that are just like none, nothing, none of it. And I'm like, really? Okay, I don't know.
But I mean, if you're not going to do it, somebody really probably should, because
Yeah,
someone's going to get
I don't
pregnant.
know. Like I said, my first year of sex ed was in grade 6, and then when sex ed was kind of a normal thing in junior high, one of the things that maybe took a little of the fun out of it was all in French for me. So all the words for French, I mean, they're still the same words. In fact, it's funny. I can remember
Who say?
Well, that's what I mean. Like our homeroom teacher almost like wanted to like get it out of our system. So he's like le peine, we're like peine. He made us like repeat stuff like that over and over again until the words kind of lost all meaning and people weren't really giggling anymore. But
yeah, ours was very dry, like you said, and I think we all had to sign like permission slips. Had to get our parents to sign permission slips.
We didn't have to do that. We didn't do that. Yeah, we didn't have to do that. It was just taught to us. Nobody said anything.
It was very dry. There was no like, it didn't show any nude women or anything. It was just like a diagram of a vagina and a penis or something. Like
all the stuff I saw was it was illustrations. Very bland looking illustrations. I remember one of the things that helped me with sex ed was actually there was a sex ed book in my house that I think I found on my own. And I remember, again, I'm like 10 or 11 being titillated by the photos of that. Because what it would do is it would like show like sexual maturity. So it would like show like diagrams of like a little girl, then like a preteen girl, then a teenage girl, then a full woman to show those like differences. And I remember like staring at that probably a lot, but maybe that's not too weird. They did the same thing with boys too, right? To show the grace, the normal thing, development of breasts, pubic hair, all that stuff. And I do remember, I don't know, being kind of interested. It was like, yeah, I don't want to talk to my parents about this, but yeah. So it's still funny that all these years later, now that I'm middle aged, that I can still watch a scene of a father and his son talking about him, just sort of being like, ugh, with none of the subtext from the scene, because obviously there's more going on in that scene when you know what's going on with the characters. But even take all that out, it's just the type of thing. Like I said, the movie's really good at like being pretty uncomfortable, which is the whole point. Like the most sex we see is like, it's not even sex, it's just like two like senior citizens attempting to make love and failing. It's like, wow, thanks a lot, Salons. That's a fun scene to watch. Two people like in their 70s kind of dry humping for like more than a minute. Like it goes on for a while. It's like, oh Jesus, but again, that's his bread and butter, that's his wheelhouse.
They do show joy with the foreign exchange student guy, or the Russian guy, whatever he is.
Vlad. So that's like the closest thing to like a normal sort of sex scene in it. But so it's an ensemble movie, I guess you'd say. It focuses on a lot of characters. What ties them together is that 3 of the main characters are sisters, although there's still some coincidences in there, in that like one of the sisters who's married to Maplewood, is it Maplewood? I
think so. Yeah.
He is like a psychiatrist or a therapist or something, or a psychologist, whatever, and he happens to have Philip Seymour Hoffman as a patient. So there's a weird coincidence there where like his doctor is married to the sister of the woman who lives in the building with him that he's obsessed with. That's the middle sister. Is that Helen? Let's get our names straight here.
Is it not, I always want to say Selma Blair because she's in another one of his movies, but it's
Lara Flynn Boyle.
Flynn Boyle.
I was going to say before this, it's weird. Lara Flynn Boyle's a name I've always known, and I know she's kind of like a prominent actress of the era. She's in a lot of stuff in the 90s. I don't know if I've seen like any of it. Like, what is she in?
Men in Black 2.
I guess I saw that once. I don't remember.
Twin Peaks,
Yeah, I guess I kind of remember her from Twin Peaks a little. But yeah, I mean, she was sort of like a name actress in the 90s, somebody of that era, and I've seen very little of her. This is like the movie I think of when I think of her, which is she's probably done way more like mainstream popular stuff, and I haven't seen it or I don't remember it. But yeah, she's Helen. So we have like 3 sisters. The youngest is Joy, played by Jane Addams. The oldest is
Trish.
Yeah. Where the hell's her? Trish Maplewood is I already lost my name.
Helen actually a sister? Because I thought she was just like a family friend or something.
No, Helen's a sister. She's the middle sister.
Okay. Why does she have a
There's three
different
sisters.
last name then? She's not a. Well, let's see. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, their name is
Sorry.
Jordan, but
Right.
Trish has a different name because she's married, so she's technically Trish Maplewood, but their names are Jordan. Just like the mother is technically, it's weird. The mother seems to go by Mona Jordan too, even though at that point she's not divorced. In fact, the divorce doesn't happen. But
Right.
yeah, their parents are also in it too. Their mother Mona and father, name I can't remember.
You know, even though most of the actors and actresses from this movie are known from the like because of this movie, like they've all done tons of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know, the main guy, Bill Maplewood, the doctor, is obviously probably mostly known for Trick or Treat.
Dylan Baker. It's funny, yeah, and that it's funny now because like all these years later, it's like parallels again. Weird, awkward father-son scenes, right? In that one, it's like the gag or the reveal is like he's a killer, but his son is too, and he's like teaching him, but it's all tongue in cheek sort of stuff like that. So it's kind of funny, yeah. That I remember that's what I remember him primarily for is like two really kind of awkward dad roles, where he's interacting with his son with some weird stuff going on. It's pretty funny. He's good at it, but yeah. That's Dylan Baker. And since I trailed off there and lost Trish is Cynthia Stevenson.
Who I was trying to figure out where I knew her from, and I finally figured it out. She's the mom in Dead Like Me. I don't know if you ever watched that Showtime show. It was a Showtime
I know
show.
what it is, but no, I never watched it.
It was
because yeah,
that's a great
she's
show.
like in
I
a
was
bunch.
a huge fan.
What's funny is she's in Live Nude Girls. In fact, that's the last movie she did before this. A 3-year gap. And speaking of like weirdness, like I remember for whatever reason, I was like sleeping over with my friend, probably 96, 97. We were like 13, 14. And he had an older sister that was about 4 years older than us. And she rented Live New Girls, and we watched it with her. It was very awkward and strange. Because Live New Girls is mostly just like various sex scenes.
Is it? I don't think I've ever seen it.
Around. It's not worth watching. It's very boring and bland. Most of the sex scenes, I think, are actually like not real. They're just like fantasies that the characters have. I think that's what it is. I think it's like 3 or 4 women, they get together and they sort of discuss sexual fantasies, and then we get to see them as if they happened or something. I don't know. I only saw it that one time. So again, some weird awkwardness because again, it wasn't our idea. We didn't even know the movie. I have no idea. I mean, it's not like she didn't know how to provocative title, but I just remember her going, "Well, that wasn't any good." And we're like, "Well, not bad." We got to see more than we were expecting to see because it did have, I think, a little bit of nudity in it. But anyway, I don't remember any of the characters in that, but I see that she's in multiple. Her bread and butter is the Air Bud series. She plays Jackie Graham, who is a recurring character, might be the mother in that too. She's not in the original Air Bud, but then she's in Air Bud, Golden Receiver, 7th Inning Fetch, Air Bud Spikes Back, Air Buddies, and Snow Buddies. So what is that, like 6 Air Bud movies? So that's really the bread and butter of her career. Apparently she's in Case 39, which I did see, but I don't remember. Jennifer's Body, which I did see, but don't remember. So yeah, she's been around, but not in any way that made an impact on me. But yeah, I mean that's the cover.
I remember this cover, looking at this cover for a while.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like it wasn't our idea. We didn't have anything to do with it. His sister just had rented it and was like, "Let's watch it."
Oh, twist my arm. I guess I'll watch it.
I mean, it is a very dull movie, but yeah, it has its nudity and stuff. And again, we were young, and it isn't good. And she said it wasn't any good at the end. And we were like, yeah, but
really,
kind of still a treat, although kind of a weird, awkward situation. Yeah, I'll still never understand why she rented it or why she wanted to watch it, because she didn't even act like, oh, I want to see how you guys react to like something sexy. It wasn't like that. I really have no idea. But yeah, so you have the 3 sisters, and they are bound together. And you have, I don't think you ever have all 3 of them together, do you? Though you only get 2
at the very end. The very end.
At the very end, everybody's together, right? Everybody's together at the very end. Yeah.
Yeah, and their father is Ben Gazzara from Roadhouse, the bad guy in Roadhouse.
I haven't seen that movie in so many years.
But you remember the bad guy, how over the top it is?
Again, I haven't seen Over the Top in a million years either. They're very faint memories.
No, I mean how
I know.
over the top his performance.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant he was also in Over the Top. That's funny.
Hey,
Yeah, but
very well maybe.
that remake's coming out pretty soon, I guess.
Yeah, if not already, it should be.
Conor McGregor's in it, so hooray! This is the big reason why he put his fight career on hold, so he could have the role of the lifetime. It's probably just some punk guy.
It sucks. That's one of the reasons I really don't want to watch it, is because of him.
Yeah. Honestly. Oh, I agree with that completely. Like, I mean, Expendables 3 sucks enough, but like Ronda Rousey's so terrible in it.
I'm not watching it.
Like twice they use the men joke. Twice. There's 2 different times where like something happens and Ronda Rousey's character looks on with disgust and goes, men. Like, it's kind of a weak joke anyway, but to use it fucking twice, oh man, that tells you all you need to know about Expendables 3, which is pretty funny too, because the whole point is like, okay, we've shown you the old guys, so here's like some new young people, including Ronda Rousey. And they do like, so it's like, you know, everybody gets us an introduction scene to show how they're cool and badass and stuff like that. Her scene, she's like a bouncer at a club, which doesn't really make much sense, because I mean, part of being a bouncer is like looking tough more so than being tough, right? Like Ronda Rousey, you know, she can throw people and that, but it's not a good idea to make a woman who looks like that a bouncer, because people aren't going to take it seriously and it's going to lead to multiple fights. But again, I'm questioning the logic of the plot of Expendables, so that's kind of stupid on my part. Anyway, they all have introduction scenes to show how they're badass. Hers, of course, at a club, she beats some people up. And then like they go out on a mission and they're all immediately captured. And then all the old usual Expendable guys have to save them. So like, what was the point of all that? But yeah.
The new meat, the new people. She's like 38. She's so young.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is super young compared to the others, for sure. I mean,
compared to the others, for sure, yeah.
I'm pretty. Isn't that because like Chuck Norris is in the third one? Like all he does is shoot because he can't move around anymore. But he shows up and blows a bunch of people away with a big gun. You call him like the Lone Wolf or something, which I think is a reference to Lone Wolf McQuade, which is a hilarious movie.
But I could spend the rest of my life watching Chuck Norris movies.
He's done it all. Well, I did like a couple of months ago watch. I was just so surprised to find it streaming. I watched Silent Rage for the first time in a long time.
That's a good one.
And I did do just a lone commentary on that. Probably didn't get much notice.
Oh shit! I didn't even know you did that.
Yeah,
that's a fun one.
It's an outlier in his career. Like he never did another movie like that. Do we have any good modern American action stars?
I mean, the action film really doesn't exist in the sense it used to anymore. So it's kind of a The Rock. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Just like I promise I'm not gonna hijack and go on about martial arts. But the martial arts star is a thing of the past too. Like think of all the martial arts stars. It's the same thing as the other action stars. They're all old. Mm-hmm. Like some of them might still be revered in martial arts circles. Like I still love like Donnie Yen. He's still kicking ass in his 60s for God's sakes. But you know, who has moved in to fill the void in action and I blipped out Scott Adkins, not American.
Scott Adkins, yeah. What is he? Canadian?
No, he's English.
Oh, okay. I love him. Big fan of his stuff.
Did you watch Triple Threat yet?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you gotta watch Triple Threat. Because Triple Threat, he's the bad guy in that, and they play him up. It also has some MMA guys in it. Speaking of British, what's his name? He's a commentator now.
Bisping?
Yeah, Bisping's in it. He's one of the. It's about like he's got this whole team of mean mercenaries, and Bisping's one of them. Bisping's not a bad actor, honestly.
It's another one of your favorites.
but it's called Triple Threat because the main three are the top or the Indonesian guy from The Raid, Iko Uwais, or however you say it, Tiger Chen, and Tony Jaa.
You're back.
Oh, you didn't show it going out for me that time. The other time it did. Oh, okay, I was gonna say, well, the triple threat of ours: Tony Jaa, Iko Uwais, and Tiger Chen.
Oh, awesome.
And Tiger Chen really stands out in that movie for me. He would have been the oldest. He would have been in his late 40s at that time. I really liked his fighting style in it, but yeah, it's a great movie. It's on
Well,
Netflix. It's been on Netflix a long time.
back to what Jacob asked here. I really think that I said that it doesn't exist anymore in the same sense. Like it's more of like a big action. I mean, big. It has to be like a big production now. Like I just saw The Beekeeper. That's probably would be like the equivalent of an action movie now, which it was okay. It was all right.
I mean, the big action star before The Rock or segging into that again wasn't American. It was like Jason Statham, right?
Jason Statham.
Yeah, Ma Dong looks good. I don't think I've
The
ever
Raid.
talked
Oh
about
yeah,
him.
we've done both the Raid commentaries for both the Raids. I think.
Yeah, the 4K just came out for the Raid. I was looking at it. Apparently it like really makes the colors stand out a bit more because it's not like a colorful movie, right? But it shows how like you can see some of the color. It's kind of cool. But yeah, they're definitely all from the East. But yeah, American action star now is basically just The Rock and whoever might show up. Oh yeah, I mean that was my. I like the John Wick movies. You don't have to twist my arm to get into the John Wick movies. They're definitely the best Western action movies of the past decade. But still, you're right. I mean, I'm a huge Donnie Yen fan, and he's still so amazing in that movie, even at an advanced age. Donnie Yen can do no wrong. I got the Tiger Cage trilogy not too long ago, and I've been watching and rewatching those. He's not in the third one, but he's in the first two. The second one is like it's kind of a bad comparison, but it's the closest I can do is like Tiger Cage 2 is almost like Donnie Yen's Police Story. Now, that's not a perfect comparison. One, it's not nearly as high budget. Two, Donnie Yen did not direct it and have control over it the way Jackie did with Police Story. But still, it is kind of similar in that he's a cop and he has to like protect like somebody who doesn't want to, who's kind of doesn't want to be protected, and he has to run around with her, and they play stuff for laughs. Some of the tension between them is played for laughs, and plus he does a lot of ass kicking and stuff. And there's even like a scene where he's on, I think, a double-decker bus. So it is kind of, you want to see like the closest thing to Police Story, but with Donnie Yen, I'd say Tiger Cage 2 all the way. But anyway, we'll get back to the matter at hand. We'll swing around maybe.
Yeah, sorry.
Maybe discuss some more stuff. That's fine.
You tempt us. We'll get off topic pretty easy, I think.
Yeah. Not that we don't like the movie. It's a good movie. It's a good movie to talk about. I'll say right off, I like the movie. I get why like it would be a hard watch for certain people. I don't know. I'm not as accepted. It's funny what I find awkward and uncomfortable compared to other people. Obviously, I recognize all the stuff in this movie that's awkward and uncomfortable. Yeah. But it doesn't, bother me the way something else could. And speaking of which, obviously I'm going to make the comparison. Just around Christmas, we did American Beauty after all these years. Like, I think this is in the same sort of wheelhouse. It's the same sort of kind of movie as American Beauty. And I know how I'll sound because American Beauty is the popular mainstream one, but I do think this is the better one. I think this one succeeds in a lot of ways.
This one goes a lot harder in the paint, I think, as far as the subject matter.
I guess so. I don't think it goes that much hard. I mean, like there is a suicide and a murder in the movie. So you're right. Like sometimes I forget there's a suicide in the movie and there is a murder. So yeah, it is heavier than I kind of thought. Because I was thinking, because American Beauty ends with him getting his head blown off. But this, I guess, it's just we don't actually see it, but it still does happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's all the pedophilia stuff.
Yeah, I guess that comes up for a lot of people with the movie. Well, that's what makes the movie unique from a lot of things, is that you have a main character who's a pedophile, which usually doesn't happen. In those movies, it's like, they're like a one scene character to like be a bad guy or something like that. Like and I know, like, didn't they like refuse to screen this at Sundance? Yeah. Sundance refused to screen the movie, alleging it to be too disagreeable. And I can only assume that meant they didn't like the idea of like a main character, being a child molester or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, it gives depth to the movie.
Yeah. I mean, we understand it's not real, and it's his, satire, dark comedy, black comedy that, I mean, I've always really liked stuff like this. I mean, I obviously don't like the subject matter, but I've always liked, and I like a lot of his movies too.
Yeah, I like Welcome to the
Solid.
Dollhouse more. I like it a lot. I really like
Yeah,
that movie.
that's probably his more popular movie.
But I mean, this one's just as good, like objectively, I'd say. Like I prefer the other one, but I'd say this was just as good. And of course, really good performances by the actors is really what makes this. This is a movie. It's all character study. It's not reliant on action set pieces or deft camera work or things like that. It's really about the performances. And I mean, you've got a pretty good stable of actors giving a really good performance. Especially, and it's always challenging the other movie because the whole point of the movie is like nobody is particularly likable, right? Like
Right.
Some are really flawed, some are still kind of flawed. What's kind of funny about that is like I get how some characters' actions are worse than other characters, but if I want to talk about the character I dislike the most, she doesn't do that much bad, but it's Helen. I dislike Helen the most. I guess it's because she has everything I want, and she doesn't want it and care. Like she complains about it.
Which one is Helen?
Helen's the middle sister. She's the writer, and she's complaining about how successful she is and how everybody admires her. And she's also very dismissive of her. Both she and Trish are very dismissive of Joy, right? Think of Joy as the loser of the family. They talk down to her. They talk bad about her, right to her face, And at the end, the whole thing is like after the debacle with let's get our characters straight here. I want to name Alan. So Alan is Philip Seymour Hoffman. So after that whole debacle with Alan that didn't work out with Helen, she actually tries to pass him on to Joy. And Trish is just like, I'm single now, having left her husband. She's like, not for you. This one's not this one. This one's not for you. Because it's just like, yeah, this guy's like a creepy loser. And I wouldn't dare foist him on you, Trish. But, Joy sucks, so she can have him. So I really dislike Helen. I get it. Helen does not rape anybody or murder anybody in this movie. So there's people that do worse things, but I find her the most disagreeable. I really dislike Helen. She's
so vapid. I don't know, man. It's just empty.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, she's self-aware too.
Right.
Like she says, my writing isn't even that good, and I get all this praise for it, and I feel empty about it. And yet I don't know. She still has a sort of arrogance to her, I guess. Because I guess she feels like, well, I'd be successful no matter whatever I did. It says the same thing when Trish says, well, I've got time. I'm a housewife. Maybe I could write a novel. And she's like, oh, I wouldn't want that success, though.
Right. Oh, like you're both so successful.
Like it would just be so easy. I just write it out, I know. And like they just dump on Joy, right? Like that job was all Joy had. And now
I think
nothing.
Joy is the only likable character in the movie.
Right. She's the only one that doesn't have
the only normal person, really. I mean,
The only thing that makes her not normal is the amount she's been dumped on so much has turned her into a bit of a doormat, right? Like, watch how she handles the situation with Vlad eventually, right? Like that's pretty bad. What she chooses to do. I mean, I understand turning the other cheek and stuff, but I don't know. I wouldn't go out like that.
Well, she could have
Vlad is set up to be nice. Exactly. She didn't have to go over at all. Why go over? Not only does she go over, but then she just like never argues with him when he says all these completely wrong, selfish things, and then she winds up giving him $500. And then she asks politely for the stuff he stole from her, and he's like, "Okay, it's a deal.
It's a deal.
Like he's doing her a favor,
right?"
Because Vlad is just a user and a taker. That's what he is, right? And he said, and you kind of feel that coming in the movie. Because you're just like, okay, I get the vibe. It's even your first time watching the movie. You get the vibe of this movie. He's nice to her. She has a real connection with him. She's feeling so good about herself. The next day, she's feeling so much better. It's like, okay, something's not going to hear. And you find out like, okay, so Vlad has a girlfriend. Maybe it's not as bad as all that. And then you find, yeah, it's even worse than we thought. Like Vlad's just a complete user who just takes from people. Even at the end, like she walks away from me, he's like, stupid American. Yeah. I was thinking, you love being here. It's also like what she says about like how like she meets Vlad by getting that job as a replacement teacher to teach the immigrants, I guess, English. They didn't really show it. And she says, now I kind of do feel more sympathy towards the strikers. Because It's just like, I get it. Like you try to be open. It's like, I want to help these immigrants, these people coming to the country. And then she realized, well, wasn't there a great man that had a great quote about this? They're not sending their best. That's Vlad. Vlad is not their best.
Yeah. She's a scab,
Yeah, she's a scab.
which is a fun term. I didn't realize people still use that.
Oh, they do. Not just 98 now. They do. They still use it now.
Yeah, I guess this was fucking 30 years ago.
Yeah. Like I said, it's interesting. It has some parallels because it's the year before American Beauty came out, and yet if I'm busy slagging American Beauty, I'm just like, well, there was a movie that came out the year before that did a lot of the same stuff and did it better. And I do the same thing with The Matrix. Just like, well, The Matrix came out in '99, and everybody loves it, but there was a movie that came out the year before that does everything better, Dark City, which we covered on this show. That's a big favorite of you and me. So
the more I watch it, the more I like Dark City and dislike The Matrix. I mean, I don't think The Matrix holds up very well, honestly. But
no,
we could do that another day.
It does not. I can still enjoy it, but
yeah. It's
and I appreciate a lot of things it did. Yeah. Particularly, like I said, like bringing some attention. We talk about how somebody like Quentin Tarantino. One thing I do appreciate him is like he brings attention to some of these Eastern stars,
sure,
like Gordon Liu, like Sonny Chiba, and it's kind of the same thing with the Wachowskis when they did The Matrix. They really wanted to get Yen Wu Ping, which is awesome, and got Yen Wu Ping kind of in the same way that like John Woo came over to work with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and then John Woo stuck around and made some more movies. It's kind of like the same thing. Yen Wu Ping stuck around and made some more action movies over here. Did some pretty good ones, including Jason Statham in The Transporter.
Yeah. Say what you want about Tarantino, like him or hate him, but he did try to do his best on bringing some of that stuff, and he got some of the stuff brought here. I mean, Harvey Weinstein fucked some of it up, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Mail him a samurai sword. That's what Miyazaki did. He did. He mailed him a katana with a note that said "no cuts." That was his agreement because they wanted to show Princess Mononoke over here and do it. It was the first of those movies. Like they all have English dubs and stuff now, but the very first one was Princess Mononoke in '97. Was that what is it? Their company? I can't remember.
Miramax.
Miramax, yeah. The Miramax was going to distribute it and put it out in things, and they said, okay, well, we have one big rule then: you're not going to edit anything. Because they were aware of his
like he's some master filmmaker, like he knows nothing. Harvey Scissorhands or whatever they called him.
Yeah, for all the cuts. So yeah, Miyazaki had heard about this, and yeah, they sent him the thing saying like no cuts.
I hated Harvey Weinstein before all of the other stuff. Just his work related stuff. I read a few books on it. He was a pretty awful person, not including, the sexual stuff.
Which makes the other stuff so easy to believe, right?
Yeah.
Oh, because even before it became like public knowledge, like that kind of stuff, like it was public knowledge that he was just an asshole that would like yell at people and scream at them and talk about how he directed their career. That was all out in the open. Like if you want to say the other stuff was like swept under the rug and behind closed doors, stuff like that was like completely out in the open. Like everybody knew he had that reputation for like wanting to control things and beat people down and belittle them and stuff like that. Like that was who he was. He was a big shot, and he liked to throw his weight around. He liked to come down on people.
Literally.
Yeah. So I mean, he's one of the easiest in the world. Like sometimes, the last few years, a lot of these Me Too, some of these revelations were just like, oh, geez, not that person. But Harvey Weinstein, we're like, yeah, okay, I get it, yeah. So yeah, this movie also had problems getting its release and distribution. So Good Machine did it themselves, which was not something Good Machine usually did. At being an independent film. Oh no, it had done some, but still, it hadn't done it on that scale or something like that. But that's what comes up at the beginning. And anyway, Good Machine was, I guess, behind production or whatever, but they were not going to be the distributor initially. But then October Films, they're working with somebody called October Films to be a distributor. But October Films' corporate parent Seagram specifically objected to the movie and dropped it. Again, for its objectionable or upsetting content, whatever. I get it. I mean, I think it's important to tell these kind of stories.
I don't think so, Jacob. I never bought one. I wish I had. I'd gotten a DVD copy.
Yeah, I had the DVD to buy before too. I didn't buy it. Like I remember seeing it and actually being able to buy, like it being somewhere. So no, I assume it's harder to get now.
I have a digital copy now, but
Oh, that's pretty good then. And thanks to our friend Dan for getting a link there so that I could watch it again because I thought it might be hard to find. So thanks, Dan. Very helpful.
yeah, it's one that's probably not going to go forward. Like you're not going to see a 4K of happiness. You know?
Too bad though. Roger Ebert, I like what he says. Like he gave it 4 out of 4 stars.
Oh wow, I normally don't agree with that guy at all.
The depraved are only seeking what we all seek, but with a lack of ordinary moral vision. In a film that looks into the abyss of human despair, there's the horrifying suggestion that these characters may not be grotesque exceptions, but may in fact be part of the mainstream of humanity. If not a film for most people, it's certainly for adults only, but it shows Todd Solondz as a filmmaker who deserves attention, who hears the unhappiness in the air and sees its sources. And that's what I really agree with. The suggestion these characters may not be grotesque exceptions, but in fact may be part of the mainstream of humanity. That's kind of what I feel, and I feel like that's what they were saying. It's the same message they were sort of doing with American Beauty, which is, you know, things like this are a lot more common than you think, and
yeah,
and that when we want to demonize people for the things they are, I mean, I'm not saying don't, but they still, at the end of the day, they are people like you and me, and they have their own. They have their own thing. And the whole point of the movie is every character is seeking happiness. Spoilers, nobody achieves it in this movie. Nobody achieves happiness in this movie. I mean, the best we get is the very ending when the kid announces that he finally was able to ejaculate. That's the happiness in the movie. It's a great ending point too, right? This kid. Not to give too much information, but I think I said this before. I don't remember the first time I ejaculated. You think you would, because I mean, if you're a boy, how it goes is, you know, you can orgasm or whatever and nothing comes out, but you get to a point through puberty where, you know, that happens. I don't remember it. I also don't remember seeking it or wanting it the way this kid did. This kid was saying like the boys at school talked about doing it and it was really important to him. I was just like, I never talked about it. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very weird. The dad, I mean, I'm having the conversations with the dad about it in very graphic detail, and you need to practice, and you know,
yeah. Because I mean,
Bobby so and so has an 11-inch penis.
Yeah.
It's
well, like you said, you're
it's width.
Like your friend's full of crap.
You want me to measure it? Why? Why would you care?
Yeah, he brought it up. Actually, he did. He asked his dad first. He said, like, how long is your penis? And he's just like, I never measured, but yeah. So it was all over the place. It's funny. I don't know.
Those scenes they're so well done, but so hard for me to watch.
Yeah. Awkward as all hell.
Yeah.
Which again is like Solondz's thing. He likes doing that.
Because Dylan Baker's an amazing fucking actor, man. They had a lot of other people in mind for that role, and
oh yeah, that I didn't know. Didn't find much about the production of the movie, the making of it. Plus, there is did you see Life During Wartime? I never saw that, but that's kind of considered like a spiritual sequel.
When I've seen it, but I didn't realize
it's all different. It's all different characters,
right? I guess same characters, different actors, right?
Oh, it's supposed to be the same characters. Okay,
that's what I thought.
Oh, I don't know. That's interesting.
I think I've seen most of his films. I don't think I've seen that first thing he did, like his low budget movie that he put out to begin with, before Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm gonna go back through and try to watch all his movies again because I do like them quite a bit.
Yeah,
Palindromes I've seen it, but I don't remember much about it. It's been quite a while, and that's people seem to love that one.
I haven't seen it.
It was one that he actually self-financed because no one would pick it up.
Mm. Yeah, so I guess the only two I saw were Welcome to the Dollhouse and this. There's Storytelling, Palindromes, Life During Wartime, Dark Horse, and Wiener Dog. He wrote all of them too. That's the other thing. He's a writer-director. All these movies, he was also the writer on.
Yeah, Dark Horse, I believe, is the one with Selma Blair in it.
Okay. So
She
Life
looked kinda-
During Wartime is a loose sequel to Happiness and Welcome to the Dollhouse. So somehow it works as a sequel to both. But yeah, right. It does have some of the same characters. It has Billy Maplewood and Trish and Bill. Yeah. So it doesn't seem to have the other sisters in it, but it does continue with the Maplewoods and some of the people around them. So that's
Yeah, Wiener
interesting.
Dog's great.
The idea of following Billy when he's like, I think, in college or something. Interesting.
Why wouldn't you rate me?
That's another scene where, like, it's already, of course, crazy because he's being very honest, telling when he's admitting everything to his son. And just like the thing that makes it all like so much worse is just that last line too, because he's like, "Well, would you ever do that to me?" He's like, "No," and he should have said something like, "You're my son. I wouldn't do that to you." Instead, he goes, "I jerk off instead," and you're like, "Oh, Jesus."
Yeah,
yeah.
It's
just admitting that he had thought of it. It's like, oh God, man.
It's such a long. It's like a 5-minute scene too. Oh, it's so well done, but God, it is fucking hard.
Yeah,
it's what Jacob was saying earlier. It's I think the final conversation before the final scene in the movie. Like it's like at the very end of the movie.
Yeah,
because I guess does it ever say that he goes to jail, or we just assume?
We just like assume. I mean,
because it says 6 months later, but
it's all sort of closing in on him, I guess. I mean, I guess he's in that sequel, so maybe that explains it. Life During Wartime.
Okay. And another thing, they wrote.
Yeah, this is in the sequel it says that he served time in prison, but did eventually get released.
Okay. They the vandals that spray painted on the side of his house, they wrote serial rapist pervert.
Yes.
Which serial, so they're trying to say like he's doing it all the time.
Well, I mean,
that's a lot to say in a active whatever.
Vandalism.
Yeah, vandalism, yeah.
Well, I mean, the serial, I guess, is not actually technically accurate because serial would relate to 3 or more. I mean, the movie does not tell us, but I think the movie makes it very clear that until the events of this movie, Bill had not acted on these feelings. I think it's very clear that he's had them his whole life, and that he's very miserable and barely holding it together. He has that whole it's funny the irony. I don't know if you've seen this in another movie where you have a scene where Philip Seymour Hoffman is patient, blathering on to him about his sexual fantasies about what turns out to be his sister-in-law, but he doesn't know that. And he's like mentally tuning him out while making a list of things he has to pick up. Then we get a later scene where the psychiatrist himself is off seeing his own psychiatrist. But remember, he has that recurring dream where he just goes into a public park and shoots a bunch of people, right?
Right.
So he's really coming apart. This is so. I think, like I said, I think it's pretty clear, even though they don't state it outright, that he doesn't have a history of doing this. He hadn't done this. It all comes to a head when not Billy, the other kid.
Is it Jimmy or Johnny?
Johnny. When Johnny sleeps over, because it's too good of an opportunity, right? He can't help himself. He doesn't. And then it all comes off that because it's just like, now I have to go do it again now that I've finally done it. And he tracks down the other kid when he finds out that he's alone. Like it's a snowball situation. But I think it's very strongly implied that until that, he hadn't done anything. He was living with this shame and pain and everything. He was holding it together. And then, the movie is what it is when it all breaks down for him.
So he is the first one, the Johnny, when Johnny sleeps over and he drugs everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's another one, right? Like Randy or something.
There's another one where there's this other kid who we never see in the movie. He's only mentioned. In fact, I think. And he just his son just in a conversation offhand because he wants to be treated more like an adult, which is part of the whole want to come thing, right? Is he saying, if you guys left, like, could I stay home alone? And he's like, no. And he's like, well, they're letting Randy do that. So he finds out that the kid's alone. Now, it's kind of weird because we don't really know how
that's the kid that was alone when his parents went out of town. Okay.
Right. So then there's a later scene of Bill driving around. He calls up some information to find out the address so he can go there. We never find out like how exactly he gets into the house or anything. It's weird. If you read Wikipedia's thing here, I don't really get it because it says Ronald Faber. That's the kid, Ronald Faber.
Ronald.
It says, oh yeah, under the guise of attending a PTA meeting, Bill drives to the boy's house. So yeah, it never really explains like how he gains access to the house or anything like that. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter.
And was that the night, because they said that Ronald skipped out on a math test, so he skipped school? Is that why
he did that?
School?
Yeah, because it was afterwards. He was probably like feeling sick or whatever, just like the other kid. In the aftermath of being drugged, right? Probably, Bill's no expert with these things. As they say, he's a little surprised the next morning when Johnny like starts puking a little. He's like, oops.
Because so Johnny's at the house and he throws up, right? He's like, I'm not feeling well, drive me home. They take him home, and I guess the next day he has blood in his stool. Tells his mom. I guess they go to the doctor. Like, that's an awful quick jump to rape.
That's a really quick jump, I think. And I think that's one of the little.
Are there. Yeah.
I think that's one of the flaws of the movie. It's not a huge deal. They want to get there, but I mean, they don't really have any evidence.
He'll be back. Hopefully.
Am I back? Is it there?
Okay, you're back.
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, that is kind of a weird jump. I do agree. It's like they don't really actually have anything on the guy. Like both victims were actually unconscious, so it's not like they could be witnesses to anything. They don't even know what happened to them.
Well, they don't know what happened. I mean, the Billy was like, or Johnny was apologizing. Kid looks like a Billy, right? We should call him Billy.
I know, anyway, it's weird. His son is Billy, but the kid looks like, but the friend looks more like Billy. Yeah.
But Johnny, like, the dad was already saying he's gay. Is there anything I can do? It's like, hey, send him to my house and I'll sodomize him for you.
I'll break him in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Plus, there's the added irony. He's like, maybe I could fix him, like get somebody to show him the ropes and stuff like that. He's talking about, a professional, and what he meant was like a prostitute.
Prostitute.
He goes, and he's like, but he's 11, and it's just like not too young for you. But also, then the father pauses, and goes, yeah, you're right. It's too late, which isn't wrong. It probably is too late. If your kid is gay when they're 11, they're not going to be like, okay, in a few years I'll be straight. That's not how it works. but
I mean, just based on the fact that he throws like a girl or something, like that's all he was.
The kid is a little effeminate.
You talk like a fucking fag.
Yeah. I mean, he was a little effeminate. I figure all the kids probably would have been calling him that. Like, even his friend, like, that's what Billy says later. He says, did you have fun when Johnny stayed over? He's like, yeah, he's a little girlish. Like, and Billy's his friend who actually likes him.
But Billy doesn't seem like the poster of masculinity either,
No, not at all. But I don't know. He gets by. But I like how his journey is like he's the only one to achieve any kind of happiness. Although again, it's pretty tainted because he had to find out what his father had done, and to obviously lose him. And of course we get that whole thing about Trish. Like, this is the thing. Like, usually in most movies where you have a character like Trish, Trish is blathering on about how she has it all and everything. And we see like how judgmental she is at one point when she thinks like that a kid could be using drugs. Like, she talks about like maybe disowning a kid for using drugs. And she's like, that's a little harsh. She's like, no, we're talking about the future of our country here and all this blah 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 blah. Like, usually it's like, okay, I can sort of see where it's going, and it's obviously of no surprise that when these revelations come out about Bill, that Trish takes the kids and leaves. It's not too surprising. The difference is, like, I think a lot of people would do the same thing, obviously, and so it's hard to judge her for that. But it does sort of come back to when he's feeling guilt and shame about it, and she's like half asleep. He's talking to her. He's like, you'll love me no matter what. And she's like, oh yeah, of course. And another point, like he says, like, I'm sick. she's like, take a Tylenol, you know. But the whole thing is he's trying to be reassured that she would stand by him. She does not. And I mean, I don't know. I've never been in a situation like that. You always hear about these things where a husband, you know, a man who's married commits these things, and sometimes the wife stays with them, sometimes they don't, you know. So I don't know. But it's not too surprising that Trish doesn't. You can sort of feel that coming with her character. And I'm not even saying that's a weakness of character. I'm not saying, oh, she should have stood by him. I don't know. That's not for me to say or anything like that. But I just mean they do foreshadow that a bit because I think he feels like, you know, it is going to come out. It's going to come apart. The whole point was he lived his life not doing it. And it was hurting him and upsetting him, you know, but at least it was keeping his life together. And then it happened and there was no going back. But I guess we didn't get to talk too much about Alan yet. So that's Philip Seymour Hoffman. Oh, you're muted.
So we just assume that he never acted on that impulse before Johnny.
Well, I'm not saying we all have to. I'm saying I do. It's a feeling I get. Because one, obviously what he does with the others is pretty sloppy. Like, I'm not saying like he should have been immediately arrested, but it was fairly sloppy, right? It's not too surprising who ends up getting caught. And the other is, I think they really are suggesting this is a guy living with the shame and guilt and pain and frustration of it all. So I would think, you know, if he was actually something that he'd acted on and done in the past, he probably wouldn't be the same thing.
Right.
You know, you know, you have that scene, the first scene where you find out sort of, you know, what he is when he stops to buy the magazine that I guess has pictures of boys in it so he can like masturbate to it in the car. You know, we've had this conversation too. It's funny. This movie goes hard in this too. It's like there's those like whatever, like masturbation in itself isn't a bad thing, but so many movies portray it like the only people who masturbate are like totally fucked up. And this movie, that's what it is. You know, Alan's a goddamn crazy pervert stalker type guy, and of course, and Bill's a child molester. And they're the ones that are masturbating in the movie. Now, the healthy flip side is his kid Billy is just learning about his body and stuff. And the triumph of the movie is his first ejaculation. But still, I don't know, man. I'm more of a fan of movies that portray masturbation as something that like normal, not crazy people do, because I think most people do it. But I mean, this movie's not like that.
I think we're moving in that direction in society, but not there yet, and definitely we're not there 20 years ago, you know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is one of the things that humanizes Lester in American I call it everything except American Beauty. I call it American Dad. I call it American Pie. But no, because remember, like in his opening narration, he's like, there I am jerking off in the shower. Yeah. And it is supposed to, and then he does later on too, he's in bed with his wife and they're not going to have sex. So he takes matters into his own hands, literally, you know. So that is a humanizing moment for him that I do applaud the movie for. But again, he is kind of messed up in the movie. He does have that fixation on the teenage girl, even though he doesn't go through with the end and stuff like that. So I don't know. It feels like in so many movies, yeah, it's just like anytime a character masturbates, it's because they're a goddamn serial killer, pervert, or they're just an absolute loser. But whatever. But so yeah,
American Beauty lets you know what you're in for, because I think that's the opening scene, isn't it? Here I am masturbating in the shower, or whatever he says.
Yeah. American Beauty also gives away the ending, saying that not gives away, but tells you that he's going to die.
Yeah.
In a little while.
Well, you forget about that.
I guess. I still feel like that's a big problem. We won't retread old territory, but I still think that's a big flaw with American Beauty. I don't think you needed him getting shot at the end to punctuate things. I feel like that was just kind of nonsensical. But anyway, we'll let it lie. But Alan. So Alan is kind of supposed to be, again, I think this is the type of thing that makes audiences uncomfortable because people like him are very common. And I think a lot of people, even people that aren't exactly like him, can relate to some of it. Just sort of living this frustrating, lonely existence. And he knows that women aren't attracted to him, you know, and he knows he's awkward and weird around people and that people in general don't like him. Things like that. Like the whole thing where he's trying to psych himself to talk to Helen in her building. Like, I mean, I don't think I'm a depraved, weird creep like him, but I've kind of, you know, I've lived in this building. There's been attractive women that I've noticed in the building that I wish I could strike up a conversation with. and I mostly have just chickened out or completely failed, kind of the way he did. Like, how's it going? She's like, fine, bye. You know, just like, well, I gave it my best shot. What am I going to do? You know,
Well,
I
he said
understand that frustration.
he said I'm fine. Like when he's in the Maple White's office, he says I'm going to tell her I think you're attractive, which is not. I mean, that's not really a opening line.
No,
you got to
yeah,
ease
I mean,
into
that's
that
one
a
of
little bit.
yeah, that's one of the faults of many people. And again, it's in this day, and that's what some of these guys just don't get. Like it's like I'm complimenting her. It's like, yes, you are, but think about it, that you're just a random stranger complimenting her. You have to, like you said, you work your way up. You get to know them a little better before you do that. But they all think, oh, I can open with, well, yeah. Why don't you just tell her she has a nice rack while you're at it? That's
you got great tits.
Yeah. Why aren't you pleased with my compliment? You know,
you don't like.
You're
a prude.
Yeah, just like I remember, I'm not usually exactly on one side or another with some of this outrage stuff that happens on Twitter. But I could just remember, like, there was this thing a couple of years ago about some woman. I don't know what country she was in or something, but she was like she was, pretty attractive young woman, and she was on the subway, and eventually some guy like handed her a note or something saying like, I don't know, she should smile more or something like that, and like I think, and there are two sides to it. And of course, like unlike most people, I'm mostly on the woman's side because it's just. But there were still some people saying like all he did was like make a suggestion, because stepping aside from either point, whether it's appropriate or not, or it's creepy or not, or if she should be outraged or not, all I'll say is, as someone who spends a lot of time out in public on their own, like Rob.
You're back.
You're out somewhere alone. Are you smiling? Like if you're out with a friend and yeah, that's what I mean. If you're out with a friend, sure, you might be having a conversation and talking and laughing and you might smile. But if you're out by yourself, you're riding the bus, you're walking along and you're by yourself, you're not going to smile. Why would you? That's what an insane person would do. So
no one's telling me to smile.
Right. So I was just like stepping aside from whether or not, who's right or wrong in that situation. I'm like, the guy's premise is flawed from the beginning because he's trying to say that a woman out on her own should just be smiling randomly in public for no fucking reason.
But maybe it's just he's trying to pick her up, right? That's his like unique approach to a pickup line or whatever. Which sure. It's different. It's not, oh hey, how about the weather or whatever the fuck,
I know. I just feel like it sidesteps those things. Because there's one thing, it's like, it's like, who is he to tell her that? Or it's creepy or it's inappropriate. All that. I get that. And, then her side being really mad about it. Or then like the apologist saying all he's doing is making a suggestion about smiling. I just feel like just sidestepping both those things. It's just weird, the idea of suggesting somebody smile when they're off by themselves, because people don't do that. You don't walk down the street with a big grin on your face. You don't sit on the bus by yourself smiling. Again, not when you're by yourself. That would be the act. If I was sitting on the bus and even there was a super attractive woman there, if I was looking over at her, it's like, wow, what an attractive woman, and she's sitting there alone and she's smiling ear for ear, I'm like, she's a goddamn lunatic, is what I would think.
But also, like,
smile, but what's going on?
If a young lady smiles at you, it's kind of like, oh, she's into me type of thing, right? So she doesn't want to give these people, you don't just go around smiling at everybody.
Yeah.
Right? I mean.
Right. But he's not even talking about, like, as far as I know, like, they never made eye contact or anything like that. Because, I mean,
both sides of that.
Because I've made awkward eye contact with strangers and given a small smile. I think that's kind of like an automatic thing we do. It's just like, oh, okay, smile, huh? And it's always been harmless for me. But I don't know. But yeah, I just always thought that was kind of funny. I felt like people were missing the point. It's just like, whether or not he has the right or anything to tell her to smile, I'm just thinking, like, why does he think she should be smiling by herself in public? Because that is the act of a crazy person. If I saw a beautiful woman, she's just sitting there grinning, I'd be like, that's kind of weird and creepy. What's going on? Does she know something I don't know? Is she gonna suicide bomb this bus? I don't know. But anyway, so Alan's thing is, he's kind of obsessed with Helen, the most attractive of the sisters, Blair Flynn Boyle. Hey, sure, and he just wants to talk to her, but of course it's gotten all crazy and incel-y, right? He's like, I'm gonna fuck her until she's coming out of her ears and stuff like that. And
that's his thing. Out of your ears is his thing.
Yeah,
coming out of your ears.
And of course, we have to have this. So, what is the context of him calling Joy? Why did he call Joy?
Phone book. He just has the phone book out, and I guess randomly dials her number.
Well, they have the same last name. But I was just thinking, is he calling her looking for Helen? Like, I was really confused by that. Like, it's never really explained how or what, like, how he came across Joy's number. Like, yeah, you're right, he has the phone book out. But I thought the whole point was he was trying to track down Helen, so because he eventually does start calling Helen. It was like, did he call Joy by mistake? I call that. But anyway, that might be the first scene I saw on TV all those years ago. It's just like, again, it's not like it's titillating or anything, but I'm just like, this is a different kind of movie, I guess, I think, when you have him like very obviously, yeah, and it even shows like his ejaculation. It was like, wow, thanks a lot. Yeah. Like, usually that's implied in movies, but it's like, no, we'll show it. Here you go.
Oh, they show it twice, or yeah, I think just twice. They show it at the end also, but he like sticks some sort of postcard or something up against the wall.
And I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that is like the real stuff, that like Philip Seymour Hoffman was very method in that, and that he really did stick stuff up with his own semen. I don't know if that's true or not, but I have heard that.
I can believe it. He's the reason why I found this film was Philip Seymour Hoffman. I think I was just watching all of his stuff because I'm such a huge fan. But
yeah, I guess I was kind of a latecomer to him. I don't know when he first like clicked in my mind. Like, I'd seen Boogie Nights in the 90s.
Yeah,
it took me a long time to really think of him as like an entity as I do. It might have been, I mean, what year was Mission Impossible 3? He's the bad guy in that.
2010, I would imagine.
I don't think it's that late. I think it's earlier than that.
Is it earlier?
Because I mean, because the movie that put him on the map was like a starring role. Like, he was never a starring guy, right? But he was a starring role in Capote, which I think was 2005. Yeah. So I think either that or, and I think he followed up. Now that I think about it, I think he followed up Capote with that. He did kind of what a lot of people did. He had like a big sort of Oscar buzz type role, and then he was like, I'll take like a paycheck role now. And he's like, I'll be the bad guy in Mission Impossible. I think that's how it goes. I think that Capote was 2005 and MI3 was 2006. So I mean, that was when I finally sort of, like, he'd been around way before that, and I'd even seen him and stuff, but I hadn't really noticed. Oh, you know what? I'm burying the lead here. I remember what I noticed him first in. I'm so stupid.
Twister.
No, Red Dragon. Red Dragon is one of my favorite movies, and I've seen it more than almost any movie. I've watched it and watched it and watched it. He's Freddie Lounds in Red Dragon, the scumbag tabloid reporter.
Oh, okay.
And it's really to his type. In fact, this movie almost feels like it's an audition for it, in that Lounds is the whole, he's just a scummy guy. He's really loathsome and kind of gross and everything about him. Like, you don't feel too bad for him when the Red Dragon kills him. But yeah, remember, he's he's the one in like the Do You See scene where he's like literally like glued to the chair, and he makes him look at all the stuff, and then he bites his lips off and then burns him in the wheelchair, all this stuff. But that's the first time I noticed Philip Seymour Hoffman, because I remember watching with my friends in college. And we made like a joke about like how scummy he was, that he spends his time like larking around in swamps, or that he goes down to the harbor and licks anchors. That was our thing. He liked to lick stuff off anchors. We used to make a joke about how he would say exclusive because it'd be almost like sexual for him, because he's talking about getting exclusive interviews. Like, exclusive. I don't know. So that's the first time I not saw Philip Seymour Hoffman, but like recognized him. 2002, Red Dragon.
He was also in another one of your favorites, Almost Famous.
Yeah. And that's one of the few movies where he's just an ordinary, cool, kind of likable guy. He's Lester Bangs. Lester Bangs is awesome. How can you not like Lester Bangs? So yeah, it shows like he's a good actor. He has range. He's a character actor. He's not a leading man, pretty boy type, but he's most movies you're just like, I would not want him to touch me. But I mean, I could shake hands with his Lester Bangs character. He just seemed like a cool, all right guy, So yeah, which we covered on here. Actually, we probably didn't get to. Maybe we jumped over. We did do Almost Famous on this channel a few years back.
We did.
So I don't think maybe we didn't talk too much about him as Lester Bangs, but here's my chance to rectify it. Really good performance, really like, and one of the most likable things he's done. Like his usual thing again is more to like scummy characters or flawed characters, but he's actually a very good likable Lester Bangs, I have to say.
You don't want to shake hands with Alan, I can tell you that much.
God, no. But yeah, so Alan's thing going on is he lives in the building with Helen. He's obsessed with her and also kind of hates her in the same way, right? Because like when he finally is able to talk to her, like he tells her, like, I know who you are and you're nothing. You're fucking nothing, stuff like that.
You're a black
and then
hole.
we get that. And yeah, we get that whole plot thread. Because it's another thing that like fizzles out. Because it's like, okay, she's saying she's so dissatisfied with her life. She's a victim of her own success. People can't recognize how bad her writing actually is and how unfulfilling it all is. And she talks about like having sex with, like really attractive, great lovers and stuff. So to me, I'm like, okay, it's all the ingredients for her to say what she says. Like she calls him back. He's like, what do you want?
Right.
I want you to fuck me. It's like, yes, because there's that whole scene. Remember, she's looking at like a book of her, like her poems. One of them's like raped at 12, raped at 11. And then she's thinking to herself, what the hell do I know? I never wasn't raped. And she's like, if only I'd been raped as a child. Like she's actually like thinking that because then she'd actually have depth. So that's what leads her to thinking, hey, this crazy guy that's calling me up and threatening me, if I, meet with him and have sex with him, that's some like real, actual, cool, gritty, real world experience that I can draw on. I get that. But then in the end, she's just like can't go through with it because I'm not saying she should have or anything. Again, characters do what they do. I'm not judging everybody for every little thing they do, although I don't like Helen. I'm just saying it's true to form. Like when she finally sees that it's him, the guy that's in her building, like she's just not into it. I don't know what she expected. Did she expect like some really handsome, cool guy was calling her up? Like you can't think that. Guys like that don't do that because they don't need to. You'd have to be some lonely, weird, unattractive type probably.
Well, he also, I don't think he wanted that. Like when she was receptive to it, it kind of turned him off, right?
Right. Like he was all bark and no bite in a way.
I guess that's how those guys are. Or I don't know, whatever you call that, whatever he's doing. Just
because it's kind of like a dog chasing a car. Like what would a dog do if it caught the car? It's kind of a similar thing. Like he is attracted to her. She's an attractive woman. He does lust for her, but faced with her right there in front of him, confronting him as who he is. I think it's hard to say, but because we've all had moments, I think, where like we've not liked ourselves, right? So put yourself in the position of somebody who really doesn't like themselves, and the world is giving them lots of reasons not to too, because most of the world doesn't like you either. I think maybe if you're somebody who really truly doesn't like themselves, can even hate themselves, and then you're fantasizing about having sex with this unattainable person, this person that's so high above you and is so attractive, I think you don't imagine yourself as yourself. I think you almost think of yourself as someone actually who is attractive and like what you think is worthy of it. I think that's kind of what it is. He's just like, oh, here she is, and she's saying like I can have sex with her, but I'm still me and I suck. I'm gross, and she'll just maybe he's thinking she'll just be disgusted. In any case, like it's a no-go because she says you're not my type, which is of course always the polite way of saying you're not attractive. I'm not attracted to you.
Yeah, but she's attracted to like male models and shit. Like, right. I mean, obviously this sleazebag that calls you and wants to, fuck you right in the pussy is not going to be the guy that you want to be with.
Yeah. As I said, I'm not trying to criticize her because it's not like, oh, she would have proven something or done something really great if she fucked him. But it is interesting that it shows that she can't actually break out of what she's saying she wants to break out of. Like she's trying to say she's tired of guys like that. She says, oh, not only are they good lovers, but they're intelligent and good to talk to and all that stuff too. And she wants something dangerous and scummy. She wants something that like some of the great writers could relate to. But now confronted with it, she can't go through. It's like, no, he's gross. Like, no thanks. She says, you're not my type. And again, you have to blame. Even if he came on to her, it probably wouldn't have worked. But he's not ready to do it either. He just sort of sits there awkwardly. And he very slowly moves over. And by then, she's totally made up her mind.
Yeah.
She's like,
he didn't approach that right. I feel like if he had gone in there pretty aggressive, he probably could have gotten, what he wanted.
Yeah. There's a trope for that called, aren't you going to ravish me?
Well, I don't know. Would you like to be ravaged? Or is she a great big fat person?
Because you do sometimes have like a female character that's like, that's sort of their fantasy, that's their desire.
Yeah.
Because you think, and that's why I think the movie starts to set up. It's like, oh, she'll find him perfect then, because he's like all the things that she, does not encounter or mix with. You know, he is
Mhm.
unattractive. He doesn't have money or standing or anything either,
Right.
and he's creepy and weird and awkward and gross. You know, it's like but in the end, that's not what she wants.
But
So it's hard
a
to
character,
criticize her for it, but
yeah, a character we haven't mentioned yet, Christina, does like him for who he is.
right,
And man, every time he comes to the door, like when she's giving him an update on the doorman, like he looks like they made him look so disgusting. Like he looks like he's sweaty and greasy and just unkempt. And I mean,
yeah.
she even
And the
goes
time
in
when he
there.
like passes out, was it because he'd been
Yeah,
drinking a lot? Because he was
yeah,
getting stressed because Helen had started calling him back, and he was
yeah.
totally stressed out and freaking out over it. So he's drinking a bunch. So yeah, then the other time she comes, he like passes out. She goes in, and then she kind
Just
of
just lays by him. Like just she's
lays
looking for
on.
that intimacy.
Yeah,
Not necessarily sex, but the intimate
her
part of it.
character is really confusing to me. She's one of the most
It's
confusing characters in it.
is I mean, when you find out that she's the killer, I was shocked.
Yeah. You
But
find out
I
that she's the
totally.
killer, and then you find out it was because he raped her. But then when you watch it, you don't even understand how that could have happened. And I'm going to turn it into like what everybody hates. I'm going to be like a victim blamer here. I can't help it. I just don't understand how they framed it. He's so much smaller than
She,
her,
she's
and
a
she
foot
kills
taller than
him,
him. Yeah.
and she kills him with such ease. It's like, why didn't she do that to start with? I don't want to blame, and I don't feel too bad because it is fiction. I'm not hurting anybody in real life. I'm just saying this fictional character could have stopped him.
Well, she didn't exactly fight back either. I
And there's
mean,
a weird
other
jump too,
than
because like they show him like being really aggressive, getting on her and kissing her and stuff, and then it cuts back to her talking. She's like, "The next thing I know, he's on top of me and inside me." I'm like, "What? What do you mean the next thing you know? No, more
yeah,
had to happen." But again, yeah, I feel like if I say that again, I don't feel too bad because it's not a real person. I wouldn't say it to a real person who
right.
went through this. But I'm just saying, since it's not, I'm just like, wait a second, you didn't black out or anything, so.
Yeah, I don't know, that part is really odd, but it, yeah, but she didn't exactly seem to. And then she acted like she liked it. When she was like, "Kiss me again" or something like
Well,
that.
no,
And
she said that was a trick so that she could get his guard down so she could break his neck. And I'm just thinking, she just breaks his neck so easily. It seems
Yeah,
to me that this is a character that she could have stopped him easily without even killing him. She could have just simply physically thrown him out of the apartment. So it's like, of course, I sympathize with her because she's like most of the characters in this movie. She's really broken and hurting. And not Alan. Bill says something that really puts it all at the start, puts everything into perspective when Bill's talking to his wife. She says something like she didn't want. I think she's talking about Joy, right? Trish is talking to Bill about Joy, and of course she's talking about how this is right in the aftermath of the start where she had talking to her. She's like, she get dumped again? Well, she didn't get dumped again. She dumped John Lovitz, but then John Lovitz, really came at her hard with a big reason you suck speech, and it had her upset. But anyway, so she's talking to Bill. Says, I just don't want her to be alone or something like that. And Bill says, we're all alone. And that's really what the movie is. Everybody is alone. Everybody is lonely. Even when they're together, they're alone because they have such trouble connecting emotionally and relating to each other. Everybody in this fucking movie, the good, the bad, the ugly, they're all alone. And I really think that's the flip side of happiness. It's hard to feel happy when you feel so alone. And I'm not saying people are supposed to feel sorry for a character like Bill, but being a pedophile, he feels alone. He's talking to a psychologist. He can't even tell that person.
right.
He's telling him fantasies about killing people, but he can't tell him about what he's attracted to because there's such a stigma to it. So obviously, utterly alone. He's got a wife, he's got a kid, and he's got a job and all this stuff, but he's utterly alone in what he is. He can't tell anyone.
Well, he's living a lie.
Right, he's living a lie, and when he finally does something about it, it's not the right thing to do at all. I'm not saying it is not, but I see that's why people are going to come against a movie like this. It's like, well, you know what? Am I supposed to like feel for him or empathize with him? I'm like, no, you don't have to. I'm just saying the movie is just making the point that he is a human being and he has feelings. I think it's all it is. I mean, people want to point to people that commit bad, horrible crimes and just write them off as monsters. And I just feel like that's a cop-out. I'm not saying, oh, you should coddle them and feel sorry for them. I'm not saying that, but I just mean monster is a cop-out. We're humans. It would be so much easier if they were something else, if they were demons or monsters. But they're not. They're people like you and me. And if they're capable of it, you might be capable of maybe not the exact same stuff, but you're capable of something dark too, probably. So I applaud the movie for that. I'm not saying the movie is supposed to make us sympathize with somebody that has molested children or anything like that. I just like that the movie does humanize him. He is a person with feelings and hopes and dreams and things like that. And at least the most sympathetic he can get is that you do see that he does feel guilt and shame over it, which there are some that don't. And I'm not saying they should exactly, depending on the lives they're living. They should if they're out there committing horrible crimes and molesting children. Yes, but anyway, that's the whole thing. But I don't know. I'm sort of blathering. But my point was just like, I applaud the movie for, again, like humanizing it. And usually these types of characters, they're just one-note characters in movies because their point is to be the bad guy, to do something bad, or to make it feel good if the good guys like kill him or whatever. Not even saying that's wrong or anything. I'm just saying I applaud this movie for going to some depth and humanizing, show him as like sort of a three-dimensional full character, a person with their own feelings, their own life.
He's a flawed person, but he's still a person, you know?
Yeah. And at least there is some conflict in him, which makes him at least a tiny bit sympathetic on the scale of how you feel. You do see that it weighs on him. And like I said, you don't have to assume it, and I could be wrong, but the way the movie is framed to me suggests that until the events of the movie, he had never acted on it. I think it seems pretty clear to me that he'd never done. Yeah, that's very well put, Jacob, I think. And I think that's something that gets missed in so many movies, even about stuff that's not even nearly as heavy. You know, sometimes people object to stuff being in movies just being in it. As we said so many times, putting stuff in a movie doesn't mean you condone it or anything like that. It's part of the story that's being told. And so many people make that mistake.
Folks.
And it's fiction anyway. Because, I mean, I don't know. I like horror movies. It doesn't mean I want to kill people. I enjoy people getting killed in movies, but it doesn't mean I really want to kill anybody or anything like that. So, you know.
Yeah, I think it's easy to jump to that. That's like the immediate knee-jerk response to.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. You watch horror movies, so you're a serial killer or whatever, you know.
So that's one of the things that makes Solondz sort of unique. I'm not saying he's the only director, but he's one of the few directors that can do that. We'll tackle something like that and not go for the low-hanging fruit, not go for the easy one-dimensional, but say, like, no, you know, I'm going to take these flawed characters and I'm really going to, you know, show them from all angles. And the audience can decide how they feel about them, but at least I'm going to, you know, show them, again, sort of as realistically as I can, which I really do applaud.
I respect the hell out of it, man. It's subject matter that obviously, you know, people, you know, this movie didn't get shown at Cannes, so.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are not okay with it, but it's just because it's in the movie at all, you know. He's not commenting whether or not it's good or bad. He's just showing it the way it, you know, how it is, which, you know, I really appreciate. A lot of his films are like that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things he does great, I wish I could come up with a more concrete examples, like almost every scene in this movie is accomplishing multiple things at once, story-wise, which doesn't sound that impressive until you think about, like, you watch a lot of movies, most scenes have one purpose and they do that. But if you're talking about, like, you know, if you're talking about like really good complex films, you'll get scenes that accomplish multiple things. And I think almost every scene in this does this. You know, you move the story forward, you convey information, but you can also do other things at the same time. And I feel like this movie does that, particularly when you have the characters playing off each other, because they're revealing who they are to the audience and to each other by the way they interact, which, I mean, ideally that's in every movie, but it's not. It's not. A lot of movies just aren't really written that well. And sometimes, depending on the type of movie, it's not necessarily needed because maybe the movie is more just about, again, things blowing up or car chases, which I am a big fan of. And you don't need a deep characterization, but it is good to see it done well. And, yeah, the interactions between characters in this movie is obviously the whole point, but they're also fascinating and they're also entertaining, and that's really what makes the movie enjoyable to me. You're just saying, well, you know, there's all this dark, uncomfortable stuff in it. Like, where is the enjoyment? I mean, I get it. Not everyone's going to get it, but I mean, I can appreciate it as a well-told story with really good acting performances.
Mm-hmm.
And plus some of just the other touches, like some of the music used to inject a little of the humor into it and things like that. Really helps.
So,
and I think probably done better than American Beauty.
When Christina tells Alan that she killed whatever his name is, the doorman. Do you think that so he's not like attracted to her anymore, or was he never attracted to her to begin with? He was just trying to like take her out on a pity date.
I mean, that is a good question.
Because he seems pretty put off by it, as you would be.
You have to remember that the first time they connect is before she says any of that. Is when she comes to apologize for sort of like, I don't know, fondling him when he was kind of passed out. And then he sort of apologizes back for screaming at her to get out. And then isn't that when they actually do the date first? Or the first part of it? I'm trying to remember.
When she apologizes, yeah, that's when they go on the date.
I'm just trying to remember the order of events here with Alan. Is like, so she apologizes, he apologizes, and then don't they just sort of go out to like the...
Yeah, he says you want to do something.
Yeah, they sort of, and they're slow dancing to I think it's All Out of Love by Air Supply. And then it's like a later point where she tells him about the murder when they're somewhere else. But that's not part of the same event, because I can remember he comes back from that and still goes to meet Helen, right? Because he's supposed to go meet Helen. And then after the rejection from Helen,
that's when he goes. You're right.
Yeah. So there's some difference there, because it's like, how would things have gone if things went well with Helen? If Helen was like, ravish me, he was able to do it, what would he have felt about her then? Because obviously she's not the type of woman he's attracted to. He's attracted to conventional attraction like Helen, even though it has a shitty personality. But yeah, it's one of my favorite moments of awkwardness in the whole thing is like after she tells him the whole story and things like that, she's like, yeah, and she talks about how, like, I guess since that moment, and I think this probably does happen to a lot of people that were raped, like she's just completely put off sex. She's like, I hate the idea of sex, somebody all over you, somebody inside me. She's like, I can't do it. And she's like, well, and all that. She's like, you think we can still be friends? And he's just like, yeah. This is one of the great deliveries of the movie. He's like, yeah, and he goes, like, we all have our own pluses and minuses or something like that. Yeah. So he's
I guess he would be like an incel, right?
Yeah, very much so. But I would say the most sympathetic I feel for him in the entire movie is probably that moment. Because most of the time, yeah, I don't feel sympathetic for him. He's just kind of a creep and, all that stuff. But that moment where he's just... Because just imagine having to take that all in. This woman you've been talking to for a while, telling you about somebody getting murdered in the building. Then she tells the whole story. Well, actually, he raped her, and then she killed him, and then she's been cutting up the body to hide it. Because that's the other thing, right? Like... She hid it from the cops. She's going to go to jail.
Right. They eventually find somehow. They never say how they find it. Right. They just find his genitals in her freezer.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I probably would have thrown that part away first.
Yeah. Well, she says
slowly
like,
putting.
That's the weirdest lie
the body
of all.
In the trash.
The weirdest lie of all is like she opens by telling him like about him, him being murdered and having his dick cut off, and then it turns out like how she opens to tell the whole truth is like the dick was never cut off. And then at one point when she's saying like about cutting him up, he's like, oh, so you did? And she's like, no, I didn't. I don't want to touch it again. I left it on. And she like gets mad at him. It's like, well, why did you tell that lie in the first place? Like,
so she lied about that part, huh?
Yeah, and I never understood it. I guess it's just another quirk of her weirdness, right? The other thing is like somebody was literally murdered in his building and he didn't hear about it from anybody. The murderer had to come tell him about it. And then at one point when she starts saying like how some of it was a lie, like at first he goes, did he even die? Like, that's not the lie. The lie is that she's the one who killed him. But yeah, it's a really bizarre...
One second. Coming back.
Oh shit, where did it cut off?
You're back. I'm not sure.
I was just gonna say, like her approach, I think, is just really weird. Like she likes Alan, she wants his attention. She's like, well, I need some pretext to talk to him. I need to talk to him about something. She's like, well, there is that guy I murdered, so I'll tell him about the murder. Except I, of course, won't tell him that it was me. Like that's her plan for starting like a relationship with him. Like I need to talk to him about something. It's like, oh, somebody murdered in our building. Yeah, someone was murdered in our building. How convenient. I happen to murder him. And eventually I guess she does feel guilty about keeping the truth from him, so she does tell him. And like she's like, can we still be friends? He's like, Yeah.
Well, something I thought was funny when she initially came and told him, she said, so and so down on whatever floor is taking donations. Yeah, apparently he had no family. There's no one here. Like, who the fuck are you taking donations for? It
Oh,
seems.
fuck, this is bad enough tonight. I've had camera troubles. Now I've got this going on top of it. I don't know. What bad luck.
Yeah, I was saying, when she first tells him about the guy being murdered, she says so and so is taking donations, but he has
Yeah.
no family and there's no one here. Like, then what are you taking donations for? Like,
yeah. She also scamming people out of money.
Yeah.
She killed a guy. I'm not saying, I mean, he didn't have it coming for like raping her, but she kills a guy, covers it up, and now she's possibly like taking money from people like through fraud.
$20 for what purpose? I mean, who's it going to? Because
her
he has
legal
no
defense,
family.
Her legal defense, apparently. She knows she's going to get caught sooner or later.
Need a good lawyer.
Yeah, need a good lawyer. But yeah, so Alan's arc might be the most interesting in the movie to me.
Didn't Helen confirm?
Yeah, they do have a conversation about it. So again, does that mean she did? It's so weird because that's what she opens with when she tells him about how a guy got murdered. She specifically mentions that his dick was cut off. Then later, in telling the whole story and the whole supposed truth, she talks about cutting him up. Like after killing him, she has to cut him up to get rid of the body, hide the body, whatever. She goes, "Oh, so you really did?" And then she gets mad and says, "Of course not. I didn't want to touch it. I left it attached." It's like, then why did you lie about it in the first place? There was no point to.
Well, I mean, either she's lying or it's just like a rumor. It could easily be part of the rumor mill, but who knows? Doesn't really matter.
And nobody achieves happiness. The one emotional connection he makes is with somebody that's, kind of even more fucked up than him in a way. Not that it's entirely her fault, given what she's been through, and she's probably going to jail. Helen didn't really have any sort of catharsis or anything. She tried to live dangerously and couldn't do it. But, she's not too miserable, I don't think. Trish found out the life she was living, having it all, was kind of a lie because her husband was actually keeping these dark things from her.
Right.
Although if he told her, I mean, she doesn't seem like if he had confided in her, she would have like helped him out. I mean, she probably wouldn't have.
Right.
She seemed like some type of person. Yeah. She would have jumped ship. And then like, and of course, poor Joy is just dumped on through the whole movie. I feel like there is a silver lining to Joy because I do feel like she feels like some of her situations have made her a little stronger. Like, because she doesn't seem to let what happened with Vlad get her down as much as it should.
I think Joy
probably is the most of it. Yeah. Because she doesn't do anything too bad. I'm not saying she does everything right, and she certainly doesn't behave the way I would, especially in a situation with like Vlad. I wouldn't be that passive, I can tell you that much. Vlad comes to her and comforts her and is so kind to her when she's feeling so bad, and then she just finds out he basically used her for sex and now put her in a really awkward position regarding his weird girlfriend, and he steals from her and plans to ghost her, and then seems annoyed when she shows up to talk to him, and then he demands money from her, and she just lets it all go. But I mean, as far as what Joy does, I don't think that's an interesting thing. Just because we actually see it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Because, I mean, there's different ways of, like, when characters tell stories, whether or not you can believe them or not in movies visually. Because sometimes they just tell it, and it's like, well, they might be lying. And sometimes they tell it, and it is shown to us. And sometimes the audience takes it, seeing it as, like, confirmation, oh, it did happen.
Right.
But that's not always true, right? There's plenty of movies where we see stuff that didn't happen at all. Like, might as well bring it up again. And one of the reasons why I don't like the movie, The Usual Suspects. Everything we see of The Usual Suspects is just made up.
Yeah.
So we see it, but it's not true. So, yeah, she's definitely a liar.
Well, yeah, the only context that would matter would be a self-defense defense,
Right. And I mean, the way she tells it doesn't even make it sound like self-defense. It was over and done with. And then she kills him. I'm not saying,
Right.
oh, it's over and done with, so she, she doesn't have any right to do anything. But I just mean, and she just kills him with such ease. Again, it just seems like she easily could have kept it from happening at all and not even killed him. She could have just thrown him out of the apartment physically. But, some people, they do freeze in a situation like that just because they're so surprised. Like, they can't believe it's happening. And, I get that. So I don't know. So I mean, certainly she does have some sympathy from me because obviously she screwed up. Obviously something happened to her, but yeah, she does also say and do things that make me question some of it. But yeah, I'd say Joy is the most the character. You just feel so bad. Her sisters think they're so much better than her. They look down on her. It seems like her mother does too. We didn't talk about it because it's probably the least interesting part of the movies. The mother and father have the least interesting stuff going on, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really care about it. Or think it's really... I mean, the thing is, the drama there is like they're going to get separated.
Not divorced, but separated.
Not divorced. Right? Yeah, the father makes it very clear. Not divorce. I never said divorce, blah, blah, blah. And I can't really understand the father. I get it. They're loveless. Like, that's happened. They've been together for over 40 years, and he's not in love with her anymore. But he says he's, like, emotionally dead. Like, it's what it is. Like, he's not in love with anyone. He doesn't feel anything. And then what? That other woman, they try to have sex and he can't. And she says, oh, don't feel bad about it. It's like, I don't feel anything, So I feel bad for the father and that he's just become dead inside over time. And there doesn't seem to be any cure for it. So I feel bad for him. But I don't find their arc that interesting. It's just, okay, old people drifting apart.
The doctor says, oh, you'll live to 100, just try to avoid the salt. Did you notice in the last scene, he's like dumping salt all over his food?
No, I didn't.
He's like, trying to get the fuck out of here.
Probably because I eat salt like that. So I think of it as normal. Like, that's the one thing I don't need as I get older for my doctor telling me. I can tell my doctor to tell me all sorts of stuff. Like, you can't do this anymore. You can't eat this anymore. Don't tell me I can't have salt. I really fucking need it. I can cut out the caffeine. I can cut out the sugar, not the salt. I really fucking need it. And I'm like that. I really need to garnish most things. I don't know. Most things don't have enough taste for me in general. Like, just things I eat. I'm always slathering them in ketchup or barbecue sauce, salt, pepper, whenever I cook stuff. I'm always adding spices that aren't part of the recipe just because I need more kick. Yeah. Like, I can't eat stuff plain at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just had like a microwavable pasta thing just the other night. Not too bad. It's like a Alfredo Cajun sauce, pretty good. Some chunks of chicken in there and some other stuff. But I mean, don't tell me I can't put salt and pepper on it. Can't do it, man. So yeah, so I didn't notice that, but that's pretty funny because he's just like, yeah, okay, get me out of this. I've lived long enough. But yeah, but I do. Yeah, their arc is like the least interesting.
What's up, Jess?
Doesn't really amount to much. Not that any of them do. I mean, none of the arcs have much of a clear resolution exactly. Like I said, the one you can feel kind of hopeful about is Joy, because you feel like Joy's being dumped on left, right, center. That's how the movie opens. But I feel like the whole thing with Vlad almost helped her because she's like, okay, I get it now. I can't like let other people get to me.
I mean, if you let people take advantage of you, they will. That's
So I feel like
eventually, the world sucks, man. People suck.
I mean, what's different about it with that situation is like, obviously at first he's just being very kind to her, so it doesn't seem like she's taking advantage of him. Then she finds out, oh, it's a kind of a classic thing at first. He didn't care about me, he just used me for sex. But then what gets weirder is when she goes and confronts him, she doesn't ever say anything to him about it. And then she decides to let him take even more advantage of her, like purposely. Like, she's like, okay, I'll take out some money for you.
Yeah. Like, she gets confronted by Svetlana or whatever her name is, the live-in girlfriend of Vlad.
Yeah.
Who, I guess he went directly home and said, I slept with the teacher. Like, how would she even have known?
How would she have known? Like I said, Vlad is such a destructive character. He wouldn't suggest it. Because there's another part, like, so she's come to visit them, and at first Vlad's annoyed, but he's like, hey, well, how about I take you out shopping? And then, of course, the Russian girlfriend's like, what? Yelling at him in Russian about it, obviously. And then just before they part, he's like, I love you. And she's like, you love New Jersey. Which isn't even true. It's more like you love yourself. It is funny, though. It's a good, it's funny, too, because he says, I love New Jersey. It's just like, who the fuck loves New Jersey? Well, an immigrant who lived in, like, the former Soviet Union.
He's wearing an I Love New Jersey shirt, t-shirt.
If you're wondering how bad things could get in Russia, this guy loves New Jersey. But yeah, also he is honest with her. Like when she still thinks that maybe he's a decent guy. She says, "What did you do in Russia?" It's like, "I was a thief," and then he winds up stealing from her. So he's just, completely open about stuff like that with her. But it is interesting, her choices, because obviously she didn't need to go see him. And she certainly didn't need to although maybe she just went to get her stuff back. But again, she didn't show up demanding her stuff. She didn't show up saying, "You used me. You didn't tell me you had a girlfriend." She doesn't do any of that. And then when he asks money of her, she's like, "Okay, I'll give you money." But then she still acts like, "Okay, this wasn't I'll spin this into a positive experience." I guess you could say she learned something from it, but I don't know. I feel bad. What did she learn exactly? That people were even worse than she already thought? She already knew that people were mean to her and dumped on her. And now it's like, this guy was nice. And I actually opened up to him and slept with him. And look what the fuck happened. So it's like, I think what she learned is to go live in a convent in the mountains or something. That's what I would my takeaway from it. And her family doesn't even like her. So yeah, I think Joy is easily the most sympathetic because I don't think she does anything too bad. And
she doesn't do anything. What does she do bad at all? I mean, other than being a scab?
I know. You can't blame her for Andy killing himself. And, obviously she feels guilt over that.
Yeah.
And then so she quits the job, which I'd understand. And, of course, there's a comedic thing of her telling people that Andy died. She met him because he used to work there. Nobody remembers Andy. Not even Molly Shannon.
They say, like the actor, the dark-skinned fellow with the pock marks.
That's who it is. That's right? And then at the end, yeah. It's really funny, how that whole thing evolves because, they're off, and when they finally decide it's like an actor, that's who it is, and they're all really pleased with themselves. Yep. Again, forgetting the fact that somebody they used to work with for over a year has died, but again, that's totally realistic. That's what people are like, so self-absorbed, and somebody I worked with for over a year kills himself. Who was that? What? Well, it doesn't affect me. Yeah.
Is it Edward James Olmos? Is that who they're trying to say he looks like, or he looks like?
I have no idea if it's supposed to be anybody at all, but that's a good
said
pull.
It starts with an A, but there's obviously no A in there.
I never actually tried to think of any real actors. So I'll give you credit for
that's who I thought of.
Doing the extra work.
Dark skin,
Yeah, because then they were kind of Latino looking or something. They say something like that.
Those
I have to admit that I never at a moment started trying to think of actual actors. I just
those people in that fucking office may be the worst people in the entire movie. Worse than the killer. They're terrible people.
They're pretty terrible. So yeah, I think it's kind of obvious that Joy's the most sympathetic character. I think every character, even Bill, has things that you can sympathize with and things like that.
I'm champagne and you're shit. Yeah, that is pretty great. Pretty great opening.
You think I don't appreciate art? You think I don't understand fashion? You think I'm not hip? You think I'm pathetic? A nerd? A lard-ass fatso? You think I'm shit? Well, you're wrong, because I'm champagne and you're shit. Till the day you die, you, not me, will always be shit. I mean, that again suggests his own pain, right?
Check, please.
That didn't just come from her dumping him. That came from a lifetime of that kind of crap, right?
He's taking out all of the stuff that's happened to him on her. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He had that rehearsed, by the way.
Oh, he did, because the whole thing, he gives her that gift, right?
Yeah.
And she's really nice about it, and she's like, "Well, it's not for you.
This is for someone that loves me."
Then he kills himself a week later, so it's like he realizes no one's going to love him, or that's at least what he decides.
Yeah, apparently in the script, the Andy role was larger in the movie. I don't know why they cut it down.
Yeah, it might have been interesting to see a lead up. But then again, I kind of like the abruptness of the opening, right? Just suddenly we see two people in a restaurant, possibly on a date, and it's like we jump past the point where she obviously says, this isn't working, I want to break up or whatever. We jump past that, so we don't actually know the context yet. But, he's just barely keeping it together. He's trying not to cry. She's like, "You okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And they just have some really forced conversation before he gets himself together a little and gives her the thing. And she's like, "Oh, that's really nice," because she's thinking, "Oh, he's actually handling this breakup okay. He's being nice and kind of cool about it." And then, not at all. Gets the rug pulled out from under her pretty quick.
she could have been more of a bitch about it, honestly. So I mean, she tried to do it the best way she could, talking
Yeah.
down as best she could.
Like I said, like he might have experienced a lot of pain and rejection through his life, and people that were probably very cruel to him. But she's not really deserving of it. But it's just it's the timing, it's the build up has gotten to that point.
I saw a stand up. I saw John Lovitz do stand up comedy, and I was able to meet him after the show. And I wish that I had remembered he was in this movie, or I would have brought it up.
Yeah,
Because I'm such a massive fan of his. Like
I always
all,
liked John
all
Lovitz.
through the years. Yeah.
Having not seen the movie in quite a few years before watching this again, like I have to say, I was like, the first thing it shows is her and John Lovitz, and I'm like, John Lovitz is in this? How come I don't remember that? I don't remember it because it's only one scene.
Right.
I was just because I mean that's somebody even back in 1998 I would have recognized.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I knew John Lovitz, and yeah, I've always been a fan of him. He's pretty funny.
His stand up was not the best, but it was great.
I mean, that's not his main. Yeah, it's not his main thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he was never really known as a stand-up.
More of a sketch guy.
Mm-hmm.
More of a character actor guy. I mean, stand-up's hard. Stand-up's really hard.
Jess, you bring this up. I think Saladaz's kind of whole thing is he likes to recast characters.
Yeah.
Like he even did it in Palindromes. The same character changes like races, ages, everything through the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must just be a thing he likes to do. But yeah, I guess I need to see some of the other movies because I've only seen the most kind of known ones. This one and Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Yeah, Wiener Dog is just from a few years ago. It was really good. Not really about a wiener dog, but
I didn't think so. Yeah, he's 64 now, so he would have been youngish making this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it just kind of, he kept doing what he wanted to do, and it just wasn't translating into,
looking at his article on Wikipedia here in the 90s part where it has just one little paragraph about happiness. It says a highly controversial film due to the themes explored in it, which range from rape, pedophilia, incest, suicide, and murder to bizarre sexual phone caller. What incest? I don't remember any incest.
He never did it.
Yeah. We've talked about incest on the show. Incest has showed up in things in this. The closest to incest was when Bill seems to suggest that he could possibly have been capable of, molesting his own son, but he didn't actually do it. But there's no incest in the movie besides that. So, little mistake there, Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Incest is not really... This ticks a lot of boxes. It doesn't tick the incest box, unfortunately, but that's okay. We got you covered with other things.
Yeah, we got molestation. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Demonetize that, YouTube.
Palindromes also has some child molestation in it, I guess.
So does Dollhouse, doesn't it?
No, I don't think so.
Is it not? It's been a while since I've seen it. I just kind of assumed.
I mean, what we do have like a kid supposedly like threatening to like rape another kid and then like not doing it. Right? She has that bully, and at one point, I think he like implies that he'd rape her, and then he doesn't, and then later they wind up in her like boyfriend girlfriend. It's really weird, but no, there isn't anything. I don't think with an adult doing it, unless I
That's
could.
how you girlfriend, right? You tell them you're gonna do that.
Yeah, but well, it's a weird movie as we know. But it's been a long time since I've seen it, so maybe there is some minor scene or character or something that has something of that. So I don't know for sure.
Reoccurring theme in his stuff.
In July 2010, Salons completed the script for his next film, Dark Horse, which was filmed in the fall of 2010. To Salon's surprise, the creative artist agency appreciated the script, the first time for a movie of his. Salons commented that he realized this was because there's no rape, there's no child molestation, there's no masturbation. Then I thought, oh my God, why didn't I think of this years ago? That's so awesome. Just shows the kind of subjects he's better at doing, I guess. That's pretty funny. So yeah, I have to. As of June 2021, Solondz was arranging financing for its next film, Love Child, starring Colin Farrell and Rachel Weisz. So maybe that will happen. Wiener Dog was 2016, so I don't know. 2021 was in the midst of COVID, so that obviously bogs things down. Sometimes got things canceled outright, so I don't know. But I hope that movie is still going forward. But yeah, I got some homework to do and see some of his other films because I haven't actually seen them. I just read about them.
I was trying to find. Yeah, Jacob said something about his newest movies coming out this year, I believe.
That must be it.
I must have missed it. It's in there. I know he mentioned something about it in here. But yeah, Wiener Dog's great. I mean, I think all of the movies are easy, are watchable.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say they're all masterpieces, but they're all very good.
I like this one a lot. I think it's easily. Well, I mean, I'm biased because I really dislike American Beauty, but I think it's easily better than American Beauty. I can understand why it wouldn't have the mainstream success of an American Beauty with its taboo type subject matter, and plus it has that sort of black comedies. I don't know. They're just the type of thing that a lot of people don't get the tone. They don't understand.
Right. Right.
It's kind of frustrating, really, when I think.
Elizabeth Olsen. Wow.
That's a pretty big deal. Yeah, I mean, well, it's been almost 3 years, so I guess a lot can happen in that time. But Elizabeth Olsen's a pretty big star at the moment, with the Marvel movies and things like that.
Right. I mean, in this movie, we have Molly Shannon in there as well. We didn't mention her, but
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Well, she's one of the she's from that scene where they're trying to guess who Andy was. She's one of the coworkers. That's her only scene. She's at the call center place.
Laura Flynn Boyle probably would have been a pretty big name at this time. Philip Seymour Hoffman was known. Cameron Meinheim was Christina, and she went on to do something like some TV show that was really popular.
Let me take a look here.
The Practice or something. I'm not sure. I don't watch stuff like that, but
she was on Ghost. She was on The Practice and Ghost Whisperer. So there you go.
Two of my favorite shows. But no, she's done tons of television. She's in all kinds of shows.
She's in Scary Movie 3, but I don't remember.
What was before that? She's probably playing something. She was in Zootopia.
I don't know what that is. Sounds pretty cool.
Sounds cool.
Sounds pretty cool.
But she was popular for some reason. I don't remember why, but I know so.
Her first uncredited role was in the Clint Eastwood movie Sudden Impact as Girl in Elevator. That's pretty cool.
Wow. That's a long time ago. What was that, 80 something?
83. She's actually older than I would have thought. She's 62. So she would have been like 19.
She was in Mercury Rising, the better version of the other Bruce Willis movie, the I See Dead People movie.
Is Mercury Rising similar?
No, just has Bruce Willis and a kid.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty different, right? Yeah, I saw some of Mercury Rising on TV a million years ago.
That was back when I saw like every Bruce Willis movie in the theater. Back when he was doing decent movies. He's not doing shit these days. Come on, Bruce. What's wrong?
Oh, that, right. That's what's wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Now I feel bad for trashing a bunch of stuff that he did in the last few years. Now I feel really bad about it.
I would never trash Bruce Willis. He's awesome. I love him.
Yeah. Well, we get to talk about it a little because we did 12 Monkeys.
Oh, that's a great movie. The movie's
Bruce
so
Willis performance. I mean, the thing about Bruce Willis is like, as being somebody who became a big star, particularly an action star. Like he just fell into the same thing where it's like he didn't really have to play roles; he could just be Bruce Willis. But when it came time for him to play roles, he could do it. So I mean, it's one thing I was respected about him. I mean, there's plenty of movies where he's just sort of Bruce Willis being Bruce Willis, but he does have roles that he actually gets into and plays like separate characters. So total respect there.
Yeah, you said you mentioned him in the Mission Impossible movie. I think he did Capote in what, 05?
Yeah.
This was like the year after the Mission Impossible movie, whatever number it was.
It's what happens with a lot of these actors, right? It's like, okay, I did sort of the movie that got me a lot of respect and things, and now I'll just do a fun one. He's okay in that.
You like
Mission
Capote?
Impossible 3 was the... Oh, yeah, I like Capote a lot.
I haven't seen that since it came out. I need to watch it again.
Well, you should watch the other one that came out like right after. I'm trying to remember what the hell it's called, but instead
the
of
other
him,
one about Capote. Yeah.
Yeah, Toby Jones plays him.
I haven't seen that one.
I can't remember what's called, but they're both... I would say Capote is better, but the Toby Jones ones is a little more daring because there was always sort of a rumor that, you know, of the two killers, Perry was the one I think it was Perry he talked to the most. There was a rumor that like he and Perry kind of developed kind of a romantic relationship. That's not really in Capote, but they kind of push it hard in that one. In that one, the guy that plays him is
man, he looks just like him.
Toby Jones had one advantage is that he's a lot shorter. Like you know, Philip Seymour Hoffman wasn't a tall guy. I think he might have been about my height, but Toby Jones is really short, and I'm pretty sure Capote in real life was, so that helps. But Daniel Craig was Perry in the Toby Jones one.
Man, that thing was star-studded too. Toby Jones, Daniel Craig, Sandra Bullock, Sigourney Weaver, Gwyneth Paltrow, Isabella Rossellini.
What's it called?
Bogdanovich, Jeff Daniels.
Man, what's it actually called?
Oh, it's called Infamous.
Right, Infamous. Yeah, I couldn't remember. Yeah, they're both good. I do think that Capote is better, but that's just more for like storytelling choices. They're both probably equally good playing Capote. I mean, Capote was such a unique guy with the way he's talked and everything like that. He's a challenge. Yeah, like most actors couldn't do it without like huge suspension of disbelief. I mean, that's one thing we haven't talked too much about. Like, I think about like so many of these movies that are like actors played real life people. Now, it's one thing if it was a real life person from like hundreds of years ago, but we're talking about like real life people that have like been around, like so we know what they looked like and sounded like and everything. Like, think about like what are some like the good ones and some like the bad ones? Because sometimes like I don't know, I'll just shake my head and I'm just like, okay, that's a weird casting choice, but I don't know. Well, like, was Will Smith really the right pick for Muhammad Ali?
No.
Was he really?
No.
I mean, he was a black man, and he was
I don't like Will Smith, so.
And he was a certain age, and he could get in shape, and he wasn't without acting talent. But I see him in that movie, and it doesn't seem remotely, you know, like Muhammad Ali to me. I'm not saying you need to do it exactly or anything like that, but I don't know. Rami Malek was a pretty good Freddie Mercury. You know, in that movie that had a lot of problems with it. It was originally going to be done, like the whole idea came from Sacha Baron Cohen. He was going to play Freddie Mercury. But I mean, that's fucking impossible. And as the members of Queen pointed out, Sacha Baron Cohen is like 6'4" or something. And Freddie Mercury was like maybe 5'9". Like he just towered over all of us. It wouldn't make any sense. Like yeah. I think that's a legit thing to say. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to quibble about an inch here and there, but I mean, you can't have a movie with like a 6'4" Freddie Mercury. Anybody that remotely ever saw him ever knows he's not that fucking tall. So I mean, it was the right call.
I haven't seen the movie. I'm sure it's fine. I like Rami, and you know,
the movie's fine.
Fully aware of the story. I don't need to watch the movie.
No, because like the movie does what all those things does. It condenses the shit out of things, right? And it moves things up. Like the Live Aid performance is considered maybe one of the greatest live performances by a band of all time. Context and quality, I get all that, but so they don't need to build it up to make it even bigger than it was. But they made it like they did it after he was diagnosed with HIV, but he didn't. He found that out like a couple years later. I don't see the need to do that and just create extra drama for the sake of it. Just like I thought Rocket Man, the Elton John movie, was pretty good. And speaking of the really good casting choice, he's really good. But again, it not only does it jump, like, you know, condenses things, but it just ends. You get to about 1980, and it's like, well, that's it. That's a wrap on Elton John. Like, what?
Elton John's still around, guys.
Yeah. You know, then he just jumps to like an epilogue, saying that he's still around, you know, saying that he's this year old and, you know, he's still with his husband and blah, blah, blah. You know, as a little epilogue. And it's like, fine. It's like, so nothing happened in the 80s, 90s, or 2000s. Nothing at all. Like, I thought that was really fucking weird. Because, I mean, the whole point, I thought that isn't where some of the drama comes in, is the 80s, for like, which happened to so many artists from the 60s and 70s. The 80s was like a bad time for them. Like, there's quite a few, and Elton John is probably the biggest example of like the 80s just being a really bad time for him and then coming back a bit. Yeah, same here, Jacob, because they're so formulaic, and because even when they're based on stuff that's actually interesting, they always gloss stuff over or condense it so that it doesn't come off as interesting anymore. But the only reason really to see that movie is because of that actor being such a he's weird. He's like an alternate reality Elton John. Like, he sounds like him, but not. He looks like him, but not. But yeah, it almost feels like you went over to like the Ultimate Universe and it was Ultimate Elton John. I can't remember his name.
He has a great voice, man.
He's a wonderful singer. He's a wonderful singer.
Sing in that movie, Sing, you know, the animated movie. I think Matthew McConaughey or somebody plays the lead, but he plays like a gorilla or something and sings, and just beautiful voice.
Yeah. So if you watch the movie, you get to hear him singing Elton John songs, and it's him. And plus, they made a new song that they both sing together that's at the end of the soundtrack called "I'm Gonna Love Me Again." It's really fun. It's actually a really fun song. But I think he co-wrote the song too. But biopics or how people say it, they are kind of boring. They're always bland, sanitized versions of people's lives.
The same kid from the Gentleman movies, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that him? Yeah, that dude's going places, man. He's going to be big time.
He's already pretty big time.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
You know, I first saw him in another movie where he played a real life person, Eddie the Eagle. His name's Taron Egerton, by the way. I forgot.
Taron Egerton, that's right.
But he's really good in that movie, Eddie the Eagle, as the British ski jumper. It's an interesting story. No, I most recently saw him in the Tetris movie. Do you see the Tetris movie? Probably not. It was on it was on like Apple TV.
Didn't know there was one.
Yeah, it's all about the guy that went to Russia to get the rights to bring it over here.
Oh,
it's a pretty interesting story. You know, lots of Cold War intrigue. Like, they didn't make that shit up. It was true, as you expect. Like, Russia wanted to keep it in Russia. They did not want Westerners to get their hands on it. And I mean, it's really what made the Game Boy the phenomenon it was. I mean, the Game Boy was a good system. It was great for what it was and what it did. But I mean, the Tetris pack-in, man, that just
because it came with the Game Boy, everybody had it. And shit, I could still play that game right now today.
Yeah,
fun as hell.
But yeah. I saw it because I was watching a free preview of Apple TV. It's an Apple TV movie, but it's pretty good.
I'll check that out. I'll add it to my list.
But yeah, Taron Egerton's his name. He's still so young. He's only 34. Oh yeah, so he's got years ahead of him of probably some great roles and things. What's he got coming up? Yeah, he's got several things coming up, including another Kingsman movie. I don't know what She Rides Shotgun is. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple biopics or things that are close to biopics that I think would be worth doing on here. But it's because they're like older things. Like I still really like to do Amadeus, for instance. Yeah, it's a really cool movie. And obviously that I won't bitch too much. The whole point of Amadeus is it really plays fast and loose with the history. It changes quite a few things. We'll get that out of the way before I even do it if we do it. Like, I get it. Like, a lot of the stuff that's in that, either didn't happen at all or happened very differently. But they were, going for something different. And it is entertaining. It's just a beautiful looking movie. It's one of the best looking movies of the 80s. Just really great sets and costumes and stuff like that. I always forget that actor's name because something Holt? I don't know. Because he didn't go on to do a ton of stuff. The only thing I really remember him for after that was he was Quasimodo in the Disney animated version of Notre Dame, Hunchback of Notre Dame. But yeah, that would be a cool movie that maybe we'll do sometime in the future. They had to step away. But I don't know what to talk about. What else were we talking about? Action stars and such. But yeah, I'm a little behind on my Korean action, Jacob. A couple of those movies you mentioned I've heard of, but I actually haven't seen. So I got to get my act together and see those.
Amadeus.
All I can think of is the Doctor's Zayas. That's another thing. I've been rewatching Simpsons. I can't even remember what made me want to do it. Was it you? Somebody in a, we were doing the chat on Twitter.
Yeah, probably.
Some meme or something.
I think that may be the best scene from The Simpsons.
The Troy McClure doing the musical of Planet of the Apes.
Dr. Zayas.
Yeah, I can do the whole thing. But yeah, I'm watching season 3, 4, and 5. I'm into 5. Like these are the best. Seasons 3 through about 8, perfection. That was as good as TV got. That was as good as comedy got. Just endlessly quotable. Oh, I remember now. You did the Steam thing, and so I had to watch the Valentine's episode again, where Ralph falls in love with Lisa. I love Lisa. That's why I watched that, and I was like, "Damn it, I need to watch all these." So that's what I've been doing ever since I was watching those. Just so many classics.
It's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa.
Uncredited Michael Jackson.
That was really him, right?
It was really him. And what's weird is, like, for years I thought, oh, he's uncredited because he wanted to, like, keep it a secret or something like that. But apparently all the official explanation was that Michael wanted to, like, have, like, a fake name in there, and it was some sort of joke between him and his brothers, which has never been explained.
And they made him a fat white guy for some reason?
No, that was just... But I mean, he's not playing himself, right? The whole point, that's the whole joke. He's not playing himself. He is playing the fat white guy. But it just means he's credited as, I can't remember, just some name. And I always thought for years, I was like, oh, he's a big star. And, he just wanted people to think it was an impersonator or something like that because he was busy doing other things. Even though it doesn't make sense because he loved the show. He was obsessed with the show, loved Bart Simpson and all that stuff. But yeah, that was his explanation. That the fake name was some sort of joke, private joke between him and his brothers. But I have no idea what that means. So. But yes, I think that might be. Is that season 2? Because I haven't hit it yet. It doesn't matter.
It was pretty early on.
Yeah, maybe it's season 2. I don't know. I've been watching. I've watched almost 3 and almost all 4, and I'm into 5. The only bad episode from that era I can think of is Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington. I hate that episode.
I do too.
Like. It's one of the only, it's like the only truly bad episode of that golden era. Everything about it is so lame, pandering, and it just doesn't have any of the bite that Simpsons have. In the end, it's just like, that's right, our system of government is great, and we love the president, and we love America, I couldn't stand it. Oh, and there's one other one that I don't like from that era. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the one where Bleeding Gums Murphy dies. I don't like that one either. So it's like, but that's 2. That's 2 out of like 150 or something. Like a crazy amount of episodes.
Documentary. We could.
Well, what's funny is we have not abandoned the Werner Herzog series. We did one episode and then got swept up in other things and stuff. Like we've discussed between us, if we were ever going to do a documentary, it might be 1 or 2 of his, because he's such a unique filmmaker and that he's done a lot of documentaries and a lot of like feature films. So I think that could be a possibility that we do 1 or 2 of his. Not saying that we would never do any others, but I think that's the most imminent, is that if we can return to that series, we might do a documentary or 2 of his. because we don't have any rule against not doing documentaries, really.
We do what we want around here.
Yeah, we do what we want, and if we make a rule, we can always change it and break it if we want, stuff like that. So, but
or forget.
So
we
that's
made
something we have. Yeah, exactly. So that's something we have considered. Anyway, we can about wrap up. Finish off your thoughts on this movie.
Oh, Dear Zachary's too sad, man. I don't want to watch that again. That movie tears me up.
Yeah, that's like real life, right? Obviously, because it's documentary. Duh, of course it's real life. Yeah. Yeah, that's really sad. What's the boys one? The Boy's Life? Or what's that called? Or is it called The Boy's Life? You know, it's took place over a bunch of years with a kid growing up.
Shit. I know what you're talking about.
I've never seen it, but it had huge buzz at the time, and maybe that's why I didn't see it. I kind of resisted because everybody was saying. But anyway,
it's not bad.
Yeah,
it's not a bad movie.
Hmm.
The Austin director. I can't think of his name.
Yeah. Anyway, that's one that I thought of just because I've never seen it. But anyway, let's wrap up on Happiness from 1998.
Cool. Yeah. Linklater. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. Boyhood.
Boyhood. Thank you.
Yeah, I was a big fan of this one. I'm glad Jacob recommended it. Thank you for the recommendation there, because I've always wanted to cover this one on here. And
yeah,
rewatching it, I was kind of like, how are we going to talk about this subject matter? But I think Cole
you just have to
took it over and really.
You just have to go right at it. It's the only way.
Better than I could have, because it's a lot of really awkward topics to discuss.
You can't dance around it. You just have to take it by the throat.
Very well done. The actors are great. Love Todd Solondz.
Yeah. So I guess that song at the end is not an actual song by, like, Michael Stipe sings her song, right? That's like the song that Joy wrote, and then it ends with like Michael Stipe and possibly somebody else singing it. It's a pretty catchy song.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like, it does give us that sort of happy note, which I like. Like, do any of the characters find happiness? No. But then it ends on the kid going, "Hey, everybody, I came," because that's his one little victory, and then cut to that song. And it's just like, if you were feeling depressed, it kind of brings you up a little bit, I think. Yeah. I mean, the movie will make people feel a lot of feelings, for sure. For most people, anyway. But I don't know. I do appreciate
people
it.
with emotions.
It is super awkward, but there's still movies that I find harder to watch for whatever reason. I still find this one really enjoyable. That the tone, the use of music and things really helps. And of course, really, really good performances. Everybody gives a good performance in this. We've talked a lot about movies where actors give good performances, and of course that's always a good thing. It's not always a given it's going to happen, but I mean, a movie like this, it's hard. It's hard stuff. Especially when you're trying to strike a certain tone, because there's a lot of darkness in this movie, but we are trying to have like a comedic vibe through some of it. That is a hard tone to strike sometimes. So done really well.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, I'm glad we got to finally do it. It's one we kicked around for the last few years and put off for whatever reason, and I hadn't seen it in so long, so it was good to refresh myself, because I remembered like a lot of the beats of the movie, and I remembered, of course, some of the more shocking things and stuff like that. There's still a lot of smaller moments that I'd forgotten about completely, so it was good to experience them again. It's too bad, of course, Philip Seymour Hoffman's no longer with us. He's such a good talent. He has a really good body of work, and pretty fearless actor. The roles that he would take. Not everybody's jumping to play a role like this.
Right.
But he killed it. And he killed it. And he ejaculated, I guess.
Yeah.
For authenticity. So, great. Wonderful. But yeah, really interesting body of work, of course, by Solondz. I don't know. You need guys like that. I think you need that sort of that awkwardness and that quirkiness, and I'm a broken word, but yeah, I feel like everything they were trying to achieve in American Beauty, some of it maybe they did, is done better here for sure. Just that reminder that, yeah, like we think of things like things that are fucked up or depraved or disturbing. It's like, it's not too far from us. Like we think we're insulated from it and it only happens here and there, but it probably happens all over the place. And this kind of stuff is more common than any of us really like to think about or admit. And it's always uncomfortable when you can relate in some ways to some of these characters. But I mean, as I said, one of the things I applaud about the movie is even when you have somebody like Bill who winds up doing such terrible things, he's still portrayed as human. He still is portrayed in some ways that can be relatable or sympathetic, which is, you know, not attack that would usually be done in most movies. Most movies wouldn't even tackle the subject matter, but if they were going to, they would not, you know, even really humanize that end of it. So that makes the movie pretty unique, I think.
Absolutely.
So definitely worth a watch. I think it's always what I say about most of the movies we cover on here. It's even if you think it's not really a good movie in the end, I think most of the movies we've done here, the reason we did them is because they have something that makes them worth watching. Like, I don't like American Beauty. I've never liked it. But it is worth watching, even to me. There's things in there, there's things about it, and maybe part of it's just because of how it permeated pop culture for so long, which is one of the things that annoyed me about it. It was so big for the first few years. That first few years in the early 2000s, like 99, 2000, it was just everywhere. It was getting parodied all over the place, homaged and mentioned, and fine. It kind of got to me after a while, and it contributed to me disliking the movie, which is, again, why I was able to do it so many years later, because it kind of cooled off in recent years. I couldn't have done it, you know, more than 10 years ago. I'd be like, fuck that movie. But, you know, time has healed the wounds, and, you know, we've moved on to other things. And, well, a lot of people still remember American Beauty fondly. It's not all up in your face anymore. So, yeah, I mean, we really try to do things that we consider they're worth a watch for whatever reason. Because not everything we do here is as complex as, say, a movie like this. I remember we did, like, something like What Have You Done to Solange, which is more or less kind of a schlocky giallo. But I think it had qualities that made it worth watching and worth talking about. So, you know, we try our best to have some good variety on here. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And, of course, Jake, we really appreciate your insightful comments. You've always got such a good wealth of knowledge of stuff like this. It really adds to the discussion for sure. So we appreciate that. And hey, Jess. And I think Jamie was there. I didn't say hi to Jamie at the time. Sorry. But thank you, Jamie. We'll see you all again soon.
Take care. Thank you.